All right, everybody. What up? Welcome to another episode of the Corner Podcast on Patreon. Kel Dansby here with the Corner Club, episode 2. Shout out to everyone who's going to be joining me today. If you guys are watching the video, already know, boy Ed joining me again. What up? It always nice. Look at the room. It's so lovely back there. You got a better setup than me right now.
Man, I try to do what I can, man. What's going on though?
Nah, man, it's great to have you join us again. It's always really dope, but I'm trying to do something different on this Patreon episode, and I kind of want to make it more nostalgic. I want to go down memory lane, and since you are first up, usually obviously it's wrestling, boxing, MMA, or we're talking hip hop, but it's the NBA Finals. And we are recording this before game one of the NBA Finals. We can do whatever the hell we want. It's Patreon. It's my podcast. We can do whatever we want. So I wanted to open it up by talking a little bit of basketball. Specifically, what's your pick? Who's winning this series? Got to put you on the spot.
Ah, man, put me on the spot for real. I'm gonna go with the Celtics. I'm gonna go with the favorites because that's what I picked when the playoffs first started. So I'm gonna stick with that pick. They a little bit deeper. I don't know the status of Porzingis right now though.
He's going to
Any
play
word on
game
that?
one. He's going to play.
Okay,
I don't know
I
how
think
much he's going to play. He's going to play.
think that's gonna be the X factor, and I think they'll get the job done. But you can't sleep on that backcourt, man. Luka the Don and Kyrie Irving.
They'll
Scary.
have to put up astronomical numbers to pull off this series, right? Like it reminds me to a lesser degree, but it reminds me of when LeBron and Kyrie had to go up against the Warriors because the Warriors clearly were the better team. But there were times when LeBron and Kyrie were just so much better than everyone else on the court. And they won, I think, 3 games that series by one play at the end of the game. Like, there's no chance, I don't think, that Dallas blows out the Celtics in any of these games. If they win, they're going to win by 2. They're going to win by 3. Last second, Luka craziness. Everyone's going wild. Like, maybe one OT game. I think there's games where the Celtics can blow out the Mavericks.
I see that as well. I mean, as long as you get those 4 wins, you could win all by small margins and get blown out in the other three.
Yeah, it really doesn't matter. And every game is a different game. I'd say now, the Celtics got their experience, but Kyrie's experience of not only getting there, but winning is going to be huge for Dallas. And this could be that run like Dirk had when he was in Dallas, where
Oh
it's
yeah.
just like that one year and Dirk just went crazy and he ended up beating the Heat. And it was like, yo, it's Dirk and a bunch of other like good role players, but role player Jason Kidd was a million years old. It was like, okay, it's really Dirk carrying things. Luca can do the same. And if he does that, he's already probably top 5 international player if he wins this.
Oh yeah. I mean, you got Jokic, put Dirk in there, maybe throw Nash in there if you consider Canada international.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Giannis.
Giannis.
If we
It's a
if
short
we
list.
Yeah, if we go back, I mean, Sabonis was really dope. Vlade was dope. I think Hakeem still might be, even though he went to college in the States, but
Mhm.
he still might be one of, maybe one or two international player of all time. So list is deeper than people think, but he's climbing it quick. So I can't wait to see how that one plays out. But throwing it back, um, what what was like the first series, like NBA series that you remember? Whether it's finals, playoffs, like what was the joint where you're like, yo, this is what got me into
So I think I have to go back to Supersonics and the Bulls. We're about the same age. I think you might have a couple of months on me. I'm 30, I'm about to be 36 July next month. So
Yeah, two
I
months.
remember,
Got you by
yeah,
2 months.
yeah. I remember a little bit of the Suns Bulls, but I was just too little to really remember that. And I first started getting into basketball when I started playing in this league through my school. It was like in second grade. And yeah, I was a Jordan fan immediately. The Bulls Supersonic series, that was the first one I really remember like that.
Yeah, I mean, of course, Sean Kemp was there. You
Yep.
had the glove. Uh, damn, I think they had Def Left Shrimp, who was my dude in like NBA Jam.
Oh yeah.
That was my guy. He shoot the lights out. So that Sonics team was really, there's so many teams back then that are so dope, but won nothing because of Jordan. And it was just like, oh shit. Like,
Hey,
what can you do?
Jordan cock blocked a lot of great players from getting that chip.
Ton.
Elijah one snuck in there those 2 years, got it while he was gone, and Jordan said, I'm back.
Yeah.
Give me the rest of those chips.
And that's when it's like looking at, and we're like looking through the playoffs this year, there were so many Anthony Edwards Jordan comparisons. It's like, yo, look, he's the new Jordan. Look at Ant. And I get it. He got like the little turnaround jumper and everything. But I was like, yo, y'all clearly don't remember what it took for Jordan to get there. I hate the narrative, just like in boxing. I hate the Floyd Mayweather, got to be 50-0, can't take a loss narrative. I hate the Jordan 6-0 in NBA finals. You can't lose in the finals to be the greatest ever. It was like, that's cool, but he was taking ass whoopings before that finals run. Like
Oh,
what the Pistons did to him, what the Celtics did to him. I mean, the Cavs were giving him hell before he hit that amazing shot where everyone replays that. There were teams giving Jordan the business before he went on that run.
exactly. And we're kind of like in the middle generation where we could kind of relate with the old heads and the younger cats. The younger cats would jump out the window and say, LeBron's the GOAT. And of course, old head, nobody can be Jordan. Like, I try to look at it from an objective standpoint. Like you said, Jordan lost, but why can't LeBron be in the conversation? He went to what, 10 straight finals or something ridiculous like that.
I think it was 10. It's something that'll never be duplicated.
So I mean, Jordan's my favorite player growing up, so I still have a GOAT. But LeBron, like knocking on the door, like people act like he can't, be
Man's
in
the
that
all-time leading
conversation.
scorer. He still put up like 25 points in the year 20, something stupid, 21 or whatever he's at now. Like no one's lasted this long. If if Jordan is Biggie, then LeBron is definitely Jay-Z.
Exactly. So
Like,
just appreciate greatness while we can still see it, man.
yeah, it's but everybody has to have a take. Everyone
Yeah.
has to have a hot take. It's and the other Patreon episode this week, Andreas and I are going to talk about this, so it kind of ties in. Um, it's like Caitlin Clark, where people quickly were like, "She's the GOAT." It's like she's in college. Like, and that's cool, but she's in college. Like, she's very popular, wildly deserves it. I'm not gonna go on my Stephen A rant. Like, I'm not gonna do what he did. No, she earned everything. She's great for the sport, growing the sport. But when we get into GOAT territories, it's like she didn't do what Diana Taurasi did. She didn't do what Candace Parker did. Shamika Holsclaw before that. Uh, Cheryl Miller. Like, she's not them.
Not
And
yet.
not yet. I mean, as a college player, she's not that. And in a pro, like she has time to develop and grow. But yeah, it's going to take a lot to catch the pro wise, the Tarasis, what we're seeing out of Asia Wilson right now, where she
Oh yeah.
has a college championship. I think she has an Olympic medal, about to get another one. And then the Aces are going for a three-peat. Like that shit doesn't happen in the WNBA or any NBA. So it's one of those where she's just dominant. In her first 5 years, she's about to have three MVPs. Like that's
It's
stupid.
crazy. That's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, people forget about Maya Moore, her run. I think Breonna Stewart didn't lose a. I think she lost one game in all of college. She ended up with three national championships before she bounced. UConn
Hmm.
was a juggernaut. Like she's the greatest winner of all time in college basketball, and people are just short sighted. And then it's wild to see because you mentioned like young kids, like nah, everyone is, and maybe I was first to this party. Everyone's on the hot take train. Everyone loves a good hot take. So it's just one of those things where it's culture and sports culture has changed so much. If you don't got a hot take, are you really saying anything?
Yeah, man. It's all about getting eyes and getting clicks. And I mean, can you blame them if it's bringing in money or eyeballs?
Yes, not. I mean, honestly, what show, like sports show, do you still watch?
I used to be a watcher of Undisputed but when Shannon left, it became whack, and it's a lot of things that we could discuss about Skip, but I'll save that for another day. Even First Take, I mean, Stephen A. Smith is a caricature of himself at this point, man. He just says things just to say things, but I do like Shannon, so I watch clips now and then. I don't really watch full episodes anymore.
Yeah. Only thing I watch is PTI because I'll watch them forever. Watch Around the Horn because a lot of the homies are on it, and I like the format. But the morning, like back and forth joints, like you said, it just they've become caricatures of themselves without discrediting anything they've done before. Like if they want to, they put in the work and they can do that shit. Like who am I to say no? But also they also have to admit like they're very, very removed from their journalist days. Like that's not what they're there for. I like that Shannon is like, I'm not a journalist. I'm here. I got my yak.
Yeah,
Occasionally I got the do rag. I got the black and mild, and we just gonna have fun.
yeah, and you could tell that Shannon is authentically himself. With Stephen A. Smith, I don't want to disparage this guy too bad, but it's a little bit coonish at times, you know. So I'll leave it at that.
No, you gotta elaborate. Hold on.
I,
It
I mean, we know how well spoken he is, but you could tell, like the Cowboys stuff. I'm a Cowboys fan, so I might be a little biased, but he goes out of the window and does some ridiculous thing just because he knows it's gonna be clicks. What just picking on Cowboys fans and whatnot. I'm like, all right, man, this is getting into like coonish territory, but whatever.
him just laughing after every
Yeah,
game, every loss. Just like
yeah, like you don't hate them like that. You just know it's gonna rile up people, but whatever. I guess it's
yeah,
all
man.
entertainment.
Yeah, that's the key. Like all of it is entertainment now. I would say, what is then your glory era for basketball?
Man, that's kind of hard to
Because we're
pick.
younger.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. I'm gonna I'm gonna say, today's like they're the most skilled players nowadays. They could like, people in the 80s probably couldn't keep up with these kids. They're jumping higher, they're running faster. But as far as my viewing, nothing was like it was in the 90s as far as that. Like you said, it might be nostalgia, but everybody watched at that time, it seemed like, right?
yep.
I remember watching that finals game. Michael pushed off Russell
Yeah.
in the finals, threw
Hit
up
the
the hand. I
shot.
watched that at a slumber party at my friend's house. So I remember specifically where I was. So I'm gonna say that was the glory days. Just everybody by names. People were in pop culture. You had Shaq doing movies, rapping, video games and whatnot, and Barkley at Space Jam. It was just, I think that was the best era, in my
No,
opinion.
it's hard not to say. I think most competitive era is probably the 80s.
Yeah.
Um, and I say that with a grain of salt because I understand it's the Celtics and the Lakers. But I think everyone, even though those teams won the bulk of the championships until the Pistons can break through, I still think everyone kind of had a team. Like I remember Clyde Drexler and the Blazers were dope in the 80s. Why they didn't draft Jordan? Because they already had Clyde. And so those teams were good. The Knicks were starting to get a little better once they got Ewing, late 80s. Like I guess late 80s, early 90s, just Magic and Bird rivalry. I'm not sure there's been a rivalry, a true two-person rivalry, as good as that since.
As the closest maybe a LeBron and Steph, but it wasn't like that. Like
Nah,
they
because they
put
were
the
like,
NBA on the map.
yeah, like it was even Steph and then KD came in and then they had like teams and LeBron already went to Miami and did the super team shit. It was like Bird and Magic we're rivals in our final year in college, both get drafted, and we're gonna be rivals, the two greatest franchises in basketball history at the next level for the next decade, decade and a half. That shit was, I'm not sure we'll ever see that. So
Nah, I don't think
I would
so.
say the 80s probably still because you still had Kareem around, right?
Oh yeah.
Like you had all of these big play. I think Julius Erving was still rocking. There's like San Antonio had players. Every squad kind of had that person. You mentioned Barkley, he was still in Philly, but that Philly team that Barkley went into as a youngster was still stacked. So there's all these different teams and players where you're like, yo, damn near every team had a Hall of Famer. You can't say that now. There's no Washington Wizards Hall of Fame.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm not
But
sure Orlando has a Hall of Famer right now. Like Every team back then had someone who were like, this guy's going to the Hall.
True, but they still had people that had side jobs as like plumbers back then, as the '80s as well,
Not in the
romanticize it.
80s.
They were barely just coming off of that. You had like goons that didn't have skill at all, were just there just to rough people up, like a Charles Oakley and what's the guy on the Pistons name, Rick Mahorn and stuff
It,
like that. So
people are wildly disrespectful because of like, yes, there were people who scored more and prettier and better. Charles Oakley to this day can go to your like Lifetime Fitness or whatever gym you want and drop 20 on your head. Like these guys were really good. It's just in the grand scheme of the NBA, they look like whatever. No, that's still always the funniest shit to me. Is like, NBA role players, even back to the 80s and 70s, were dead nice. I remember being in New York and they would come through the summer tournaments because
mhm.
that's like they kind of stopped in the 90s and then LeBron, KD, everyone brought it back when Rucker became what Rucker was again. But in the 80s, they would come through and play like at Rucker Park, at Kingdom, like all these tournaments and give people buckets. And they didn't have to be starters, buckets. These guys were good. They're not all jumping out of the gym athletic, but I would say most have better handles than the guys now. Guys now are just sloppy turnover machines. Like
They
back
do
then, it
turn
was
the ball
like, yeah, back then it was like, I got handles to go to the rim to do that. Like it was very like succinct in their movements. And then their jump shots were just water. Like now guys shoot from further and people are like, oh my God, they're the best shooters ever. It's like, all right, but they had a 3-point line and people were just wet with it. Like the shooters now aren't the shooters 10 years ago.
You don't think so?
No, like there's a lot of 3-and-D guys because now they want you to be lengthy and be able to kind of play as much defense as you can. But yeah, there's no Ray Allen now. Like Steph and Clay were probably the last two of that mold. But even role playing shooters, JJ Redick's in the news. There's no JJ Redick. There's no fuck. It was Kyle
Porter.
Korver. There's no Kyle Korvers. There's no like guy that comes off the bench. You like he's an assassin with the ball. To go back further, there's no Peja Stojakovic.
I was just about to mention that. Cam.
Yeah, like there's none of these guys where they just come off the bench. You'd be like, oh, they're about to light this shit up. Glenn Rice, sniper back in the day for Charlotte. So I don't think there's many of those guys.
But I feel like the players nowadays are well rounded because if you look at 3-point percentage, they didn't shoot a lot back in the '80s. You know, it hiked up each decade. But if you look at the shooting percentages from deep, like there's a lot of guys up there in the 40s, and that's crazy.
Well, people play less defense.
Well, yeah, I guess
You
you could
you
say
can't
that
hand
too.
check. You can't do it. Like there's a lot of stuff now where if you have someone that can handle the ball, you're gonna get a pretty wide open shot.
That's
Like you,
true.
you look back when, oh, especially when they put zone defenses back in, it was like, fuck, I gotta play against the zone. Like no one runs zone in NBA right now. Like everyone's man to man, running off screens or dribble drive, kick out. People hit threes in transition. That shit wasn't a thing. It was a 3-man weave. Yo, it's 3-on-2. We're getting to the basket. We're passing the ball. That's like they taught us that when we were growing up. Yo, the ball doesn't touch the ground. Pass, 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 layup. Now it could be 3-on-1. They dribble, stop at the 3-point line, shoot. Like, what kind of basketball is this? So I think it's like very like flawed statistically. But skill wise, give me all those other shooters.
Yeah.
What was the dude from the Jazz?
Uh,
Jeff
uh,
Hornacek?
Jeff Hornacek with him and
Ooh,
Stockton.
yeah. People sleep. They just stocked him alone. Jeff Hornacek was getting busy. So like people shot threes, like real contested good threes back in the day. And I just don't see those sharpshooters anymore in this game. And I guess well, because 20 minutes flew by, we can wrap up on this. What is one thing that you miss from like old school NBA that you would bring back to this game that maybe people don't do it? Like a change for the worse. Because we talk about that shit in pro wrestling all the time, like changes for the better, but there's always a change for the worse. Like what has changed? One thing that's changed for the worse.
Man, I have to think about that. Like you said, it's less physical today. I like to see them be able to play defense. You sneeze on the player and it's a foul, man.
That shit's the worst, especially late in games. At the
Oh
end of
yeah.
the game will take 20 minutes when there's 2 minutes left on the clock because everything's a foul.
Yeah, so
Uh,
definitely, yeah, the physicality, bring that back a little bit. Like I don't need to see somebody act like they're dead when they barely got touched.
it looks like soccer.
Yeah.
Uh, nah, yeah. I mean, that would probably be like close to mine too. My biggest thing, and I get it, the world's changed, internet shrunk stuff. You can be on social media and chill and go wherever. I kind of like genuine rivalries. Everyone in the NBA is way too buddy buddy. And that's why I kind of like Anthony Edwards because he don't give a fuck. Like he's kind of friendly, but he's like, no, when we on the court, like I'm talking shit. Like I'm gonna bust, like it's like he's playing on a playground. And I
Yeah.
like that. There's not enough of that. People are sensitive. LeBron got way too sensitive with that. Like you can't talk shit to Bron. Like, what do you mean you can't talk shit?
It's the AAU era, Gary Payton was the master of talking shit
It's it.
back in
Kevin
the
Garnett, like they were talking shit. And that's not even too long ago.
yeah.
And that's like completely gone. And then of course in the 90s, Jordan was popping shit, Barkley was popping shit. I mean, oh man, Alonzo. That's why you needed enforcers.
Yeah.
Because everybody was popping shit. You needed somebody who's gonna punch somebody in the face. You needed a Chris Childs to punch Kobe. Rest in peace.
Yeah.
you
That
needed
was crazy.
somebody. Yeah. Occasionally you get, a coach choked out or something.
Pretty
Like
well.
it's pretty well. Like you never knew what was gonna happen. Like people just didn't like people. Like the competitive edge and nature was through the roof. And now it's like, yo, we're showing up, just have a game. It's all fun, guys. And it's just like, come on, bro. Like LeBron 2 days after went and watched a game, a playoff game. I've seen Halliburton and them going around watching different stuff. 90s people are like, nah, I'm sad. I'm mad. You ain't seeing me. And I'm talking shit. Wait until I see you next year. Like Reggie Miller, pop shit the whole time. Man made one NBA final. Didn't matter. Pop shit the whole time. So
We not
yeah,
we
too
not
friendly.
friends until we retire.
That's it. Like Jordan, Barkley, we get together and gamble every now and then. But even then, we're doing stuff that we're going to talk shit. The entire relationship was built around talking shit. Now these guys just want to sip wine, have a cigar, hit the red carpet, all this. I'm just like, man, it's definitely changed. And I feel like brings us around to combat. I feel like combat sports is a little like that now. It's I was hoping AEW in pro wrestling bring that bite back. But not everybody there is friendly. And
Yeah.
shout out to them. Like the media and the fans are like tribalists, but everybody behind the scenes and all wrestlers, I've seen them. I chilled. Everyone likes each other.
Damn, like where's that competitive fire, man?
Yeah, where's driving the tank up to the door? Let me in. Like it's it's definitely a bygone era. So nah, man, it's been good. I appreciate you taking your time, chop it up with me about basketball and NBA because it's NBA season. It's nice to start the pod off sometimes with something that is in combat. So I definitely appreciate it. We'll have another one next month. Every time I see your email shoot through, when I ask who wants to be on, I'm like, oh, gotta make time. So I'm pretty sure I'll talk to you again
Yeah, for
next
sure.
weekend.
For sure,
Everyone,
for sure.
man, EJ in the building. Thank you so much. Really, really appreciate it. Till next time, you guys don't go nowhere for Egypt. Next time, next month, I'll hit you up. Everybody else, wait right there. Got another guest coming through.
Peace.
All right, as promised, another Corner Club member joining us right now. The captain, Chris Brooks, joining us. What up? It
What's
is,
good?
man, it's been too long,
Way too
way too
long.
long. And I mean, if people don't know, you've been listening for what feels like ever, probably 3 voices ago for me. at least to the podcast. Linked up when you came to Vegas. That
Yes,
was
sir.
amazing. Chill, you and the wife are incredible, incredible people. And it is so dope. I'm so glad you reached out. I was like, yo, I want to be on this episode. It's like, yes,
Yes,
we haven't
sir.
we haven't chopped it up in forever. And this is a nostalgic episode. So even as nostalgia goes in terms of you listening to the pod and that being a long time, we have more nostalgia to cover because you're coming on and we're chopping up about pro wrestling nostalgia.
Let's get it.
And oh boy, I would like to be cheery about this, right? But I'm
Okay.
gonna hit you with one that may steer in a bad direction first. I'm just giving you, but you take this
All
however you
right.
want. How do you feel about the AEW WCW comparison?
That's a great like jumping straight into a
Yo, that
question.
because there's bad nostalgia
Yeah,
sometimes.
there's bad nostalgia and there's good nostalgia too, right? So there are a lot of comparisons, obviously, both being with Turner, right? Like on that network. So there's a lot of comparisons just from jump. But I will say there are things I like because I feel like our brains are just naturally built to compare things and analyze things. But I try to tell myself as a fan that they're two separate entities as well. Obviously, one's no longer around, one's current. So it's hard to judge the different errors, but I do see a lot of similarities sometimes in the way that they book. I will lead in by saying that WCW will always have a special place in my heart because I'll just never forget running to that TV Monday nights and being like, all right, Nitro's on for a little bit. I'm gonna go to Raw. I'm gonna go back to Nitro, go back to Raw. And like that feeling was just like you didn't want to miss anything, regardless of what the show was, like not a minute of it. And I will say AEW will give you that sometimes. I definitely feel that. Like I'll have weeks where it's like, man, this is a really good episode. Like Tony's locked in this week.
Yeah,
And then you have other episodes where you just kind of feel like, I don't know. I don't want to say stagnant, but it's like there's just no movement in that week, if you catch my drift.
yeah, just
Um,
matches. It's like it's just
yes,
random
just
matches.
matches.
There's no
Yes.
storyline movement. We're not
Yeah, like
progressing
there's
toward
yes,
anything.
like you don't even know why these two people are wrestling against each other, but they just happen to be here. And it'll be a good match, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But for people that are, to me, longtime wrestling fans, you're a fan of stories being told. You are naturally, whether you want to admit it or not. And I think it's so important to tell those elements of that story because it gives just so much of a well-rounded picture of whatever character that you're trying to portray. But then it also gives us that human element where we can actually compare ourselves to whoever we're watching, you know? Um, but man, I wish AEW success. I don't want to see them, go under because anytime you have competition, I feel like it's a good thing. But if I had to say one thing that definitely reminds me or a theme that seems current between both of them is that there's a level up here, right? Like these are your top guys, these are like your mid guys, and these are your bottom. And it's like WCW kind of kept people where they were. You
Yeah.
didn't see a lot of people move up. I think Goldberg's like really the main guy that like got a push out of nowhere, became like a household name. That's what I want to see more from AEW. Like when it first started, man, they came out the gate with the Bucks, Omega, Cody, Jericho. And some of those people are still there in those top spots. But to me, it's like you want to make sure that you're establishing, creating new stars so that you're building for like that future. You don't want to be so like as much as I loved MJF coming back,
Yeah.
right? To me, it kind of showed like there's something missing, right? When he's not there. Like the
Yeah.
show's just a little bit different. Especially in the promo game. Like
He's their best character.
he really
Yeah.
is. And it's crazy to say that because it's like he's not a character, he's just himself, but he really is. He's the best character they have. And once that mic, if he's got a live mic in his hand, he's instantly must see TV. But great question.
Yeah. No, I think, and obviously everyone listening knows like Swerve is the homie, except when I'm playing him in Madden. Then I wish him nothing but the worst. But Swerve's the homie. Talked to Swerve the other day. Love what he's done with his championship run.
Yes.
But I'm very even honest to him. And when we talk, I'm just, on my end of things, it's like, yo, I think everything you're doing is really dope. But at some point, they also have to do something for you. Like
I love that.
you're bringing a lot of energy, a lot of
Yes.
your resources to this, and a lot of that was in pursuit of becoming their champion
Yeah,
and
definitely.
becoming the guy. And I understand, like, I don't have a pro wrestler mentality, but I've watched enough stuff to know everyone wants to be the guy.
Yeah.
And Swerve exhausted a lot of his connections to become that guy. He brought in Rick Ross. He brought in
Yes.
all these other aspects. He made that entrance song. That like
Yes.
he went and got a guy who wrote hits for legit rappers and singers and said, "Hey,
Yes.
I need you to write this song and I'm a
Yeah.
rap on it, but I need you to do the chorus." And it turned into what it is in the Na Na dance. But before a Na Na dance could happen, Swerve put his
Yeah.
own money and own studio time into that. It wasn't AEW putting up the studio time for that. He's done a lot of his appearances and Hot 97 and everywhere he's been. A lot of his connections, Floyd coming to that fight was for Swerve. That's a Swerve connection. And I was like, yo, you're bringing a lot to AEW and as champion, and no one can ever take away from you. And that may lead to a huge contract down the line. I don't know. So it
Yeah.
may all pay off, but also they have an obligation to also promote you and to do things
There we
for
go.
you. And I think AEW, if there's anything that they're missing, in my eyes, even different than WCW back in the day, because people would say what they want. WCW did one hell of a job promoting people outside of WCW.
Yeah, definitely.
Um,
Their marketing was A1.
yeah, Diamond Dallas Page he was on his way to being a star, but when they did
Yes.
that movie, he became a star.
Straight up.
Arquette became champion, which is ridiculous. But they
Yeah.
did things to put people in positions, right? And I
Yeah.
think AEW is kind of missing that. Tony is so deep in the forest in terms of quality of wrestling that he somewhat forgets that there's the business aspect outside of that. And
Definitely.
if you create mainstream stars, people who are memorable, then you don't have to work as hard. It sounds weird as putting together all of those in-ring matches because people
Yeah.
just show up for the stardom of it.
Just for the moment, bro. Just for the
That's
moment.
it. Like I can name
I
you
don't want
two bangers of a rock match, maybe three, maybe
I knew
three.
you were going there,
And
right?
but I don't
But
care. It doesn't
WrestleMania
matter.
time, bro, Rock is in there, you're watching. It's just
That's
natural.
it. It's he just needs they need to do a better job of building like that charisma of it. Cause right now, and they are young in the game. So it reminds me of still
Yeah.
even early WCW, where this should be where they're still peaking and moving
Mhm.
upwards. And AEW seems to have like plateaued a bit.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It seems like they're stopping with some of the signings. So that may be different. But then we have the EVPs and
Yeah.
we had like team AEW
Team
defending the
AEW.
honor. And it was
Yeah.
like, bro, this is just the NWO angle.
Yeah. Yeah, it
Like
definitely gave me those same vibes, right? Like Tony played Bischoff, like getting
he did.
attacked, the
Yeah.
scapegoat, right? And I feel like that's why so many people expected Tony to turn during that match. Or thought, there could be some element to that playing. So you're definitely right there.
Yeah. It
Um,
seems so early to now
mhm.
it's just done. And the EVPs won, and now they're just taking over the company.
Yeah. I mean, but what do you feel? I mean, my only thing was like, I do feel like their backs were a little against the wall. You had people injured. So it's like, what can you do to kind of drive a main storyline? My biggest issue when that happened was like, have your champion defend your company. Like that was a big thing for me. I know Swerve was tied into the feud with Christian at that time,
Yeah.
but yeah, that was my thing. It's like, man, like have your champion defend. So I love he addressed that last night on Dynamite. I love that he addressed that and said that because it looks like they're going to be building toward another match, obviously with the Elite and the AVPs. So hopefully he's in the forefront. But yeah, like I agree with you on the champion aspect. Me personally, I love Swerve. Been a fan. Obviously, I had people on Twitter. One of my friends, Bud, shout out Bud on Twitter. He put me on to Lucha Underground years ago, and
Yeah.
like, bro, that was like I became a huge Swerve fan after Lucha Underground. I hate that that's gone, but shout out to a great wrestling promotion when it was there. Great
I guess
stories.
Freddie Prince Jr. is trying to bring something back that's like Lucha
Yeah,
Underground.
Man, it's the time's hot. Why not? Like
Yeah.
people are into wrestling nowadays, and I feel like that's another avenue to tell stories, and it's a different vibe, right? Like they were
Yep.
so gritty compared to like a WWE, or even a TNA. Like I feel like they were really gritty. But like Swerve, what I want to see AEW do with him is, if you're gonna put him in match and have him give title defenses, put it against people who people would say are elite. Don't have it
Yeah.
against like the Luchasaurus, or even like Osprey second guy. I think Kyle Fletcher, right? Like
Yeah. It was
great in
Fletcher,
ring,
Luchasaurus, and then this past week was
Roddy, right?
Roddy, but Roddy had just
Yeah,
lost. So it's
yeah,
like,
right,
why are you getting
exactly.
a title shot or
Why are
a
you getting a
wrestling match
title shot?
against the champ? Yeah, it makes no sense.
Exactly. So like put him against people that are somewhat hot or at least elite in that sense, to where like you said, like these are credible title defenses. Because I don't want people looking back and like, oh, he beat people we knew were going to lose. But you're right though. The man has really, really put it like the foot to the gas pedal when it comes to pushing himself. What he's able to do. I was hyped last night. Saw the grandma doing the Nana dance like in the
She was
crowd.
getting it. Yeah.
Yo, it's viral and it definitely hits. And I agree, like the company's got to do more to create some of those memorable moments. Because when I think back about title reigns, because we're talking nostalgia, right? So when I think back of like impactful title reigns, I don't necessarily remember matches sometimes. I'll remember endings, I'll remember promos, and you just remember moments sometimes that are like created. And I feel like that's what they got to do for Swerve. Continue to give him like big moments to where it's elevating that championship reign, to where like when you put him in the ring with a guy like MJF, Kenny Omega, it's
Yeah.
like these stories are level, right? Like we'll be able to go back and be like, man, this championship reign was here just as level as MJF's or Omega's or even Jericho's. That's what you want out of that. So I am interested to see how things go. I do think the match with Osprey is going to be a crazy banger. I hope they get a chance to tell a little bit of story in between that. But I do look forward to Forbidden Door and seeing what they can do a little bit. Because if there's one thing that I don't want them to fall into, which we saw in WCW, is you don't want to get repetitive, right?
Yeah.
Like you mentioned the NWO, we had NWO Black and Gold, or Silver and what was it, Silver and Black. We had
Yeah.
Red and Black,
Red and black. And then
right?
LWO, which is now called
LWO.
TW.
Yes. So it's like I see what you're saying. Like you don't want them to be a one-trick pony when it
Yep.
comes to the storytelling and like the factions, right? They're very faction heavy. So yeah, they definitely got to learn to tell stories in a different way. Otherwise, I feel like we'll be looking back and it'll be something different. It'll be what could have been. Because
Yeah.
this is a hot time right now. I feel like everyone's on the odds of professional wrestling, and this is the time where if you're gonna make a change or make a move, do it.
So 90s wise, were you more WWE kid or
Or
WCW?
WCW. I had my waves, but overall, I was probably a WWE kid overall. Just because I love HBK, Shawn Michaels, DX.
He's the GOAT.
Quick
Yeah,
sidebar:
that's
I
right.
got suspended in middle school for doing the
Crush.
the suck in the chopper
Yeah.
son.
Yep.
So like
I
definitely
did
more.
too.
Yeah. I mean, how could you not? I feel like they were so influential,
Yep.
and you felt cool just doing that. So, but I was definitely a WWE guy for sure.
No. I'm glad. I'm glad we bond on that one. Um, what's your thoughts then on what Sean's doing now with NXT? A week after Sexy Red and Sean's up there cooking with the chef hat.
Listen, HBK is putting another wall of legacy, like of plaques, next to his name right now. I feel like some people don't know HBK the wrestler because they weren't around in that time. So they just know, he's a legend in the game. But now I think people see how valuable he is. One, he has an incredible eye for talent. And I also feel like he has done a better job to me than anyone in pro wrestling at putting people in places to be successful. Like, I remember when Carmelo lost a strap, right? And it goes
Yep.
to Dragunov. I'm like, what the hell is Carmelo going to do for a year and a half, right? He needs to go to the main roster. Sean told another story, right? Obviously, i.e. Marty Jannetty, we've seen some of that with him and Trick, but it was a great job of keeping him busy. We've seen the same with Braun Breaker teaming with Baron Corbin. Who would have thought that would have worked? The War Dogs was super popular, right? Like people were cheering. So Sean is in his bag, bro. He is really good at understanding what the crowd likes, who connects with who as far as like chemistry in ring. And then I think he really puts behind the scenes. I don't know. I don't have any friends in that business, but I would just say I feel like behind the scenes, does a great job of instilling confidence in people to go out and be successful, whether it's cutting a promo or going out for a match, or even like contract signings have become really big in NXT too. Like those segments always hit. And I feel like it's just him. He's got an talent, obviously the right people around him. But yeah, my man's adding a legacy. Sexy Red was huge. I've never seen
Crazy.
NXT all over Twitter, bro. Like the entrance with Trick was crazy.
Crazy. Yeah, they're
Crazy.
definitely on a different wavelength. I mean, when you talk about instilling confidence, yeah, I think that's like easy to see from the outside, right? Because
Yeah.
you have people who are so brand new to the industry. The entire women's division, first off,
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
brand new to the industry, but rocking. Then
Rocking,
that
bro.
North American title match is going to be wild, and it
Yo,
shows how much talent there is there.
easily. I think that's going to be one of the most anticipated matches of the weekend. Honestly, I do. Because all of those women can go. They all have skills. And even this past week, did a good job of showcasing the different personalities as people were talking in the ring, interacting with Jordan Grace outside the ring. Like, really good job of like giving you who these people are along with their skill set. But yeah, I mean, I was worried after the draft. I'm not going to lie. I was a little bit, but NXT is on fire. It's like it didn't matter.
As long as they have Obafemi, they're good.
Yo,
Like,
I didn't even mention Obi. Femi is great. Look, I cannot wait to see what they continue to do with him. I love the short story they told with Dragon Lee was great, but
yeah,
to me, there's so much potential with this guy. He
yeah,
can cut a promo. He can wrestle big guys, small guys. And I'm really interested to see. Like, I love the tease they had a few weeks ago with him and Trick when Trick was walking to the back and they like
yeah.
locked eyes for a second. I'm very interested to see what happens there. But yeah, their talent pool is, man, they got a way of building people. And I know you remember because you talked on the podcast with Andreas, right? Remember when they announced their whole like how they're going to train people to be
Yep.
wrestlers, and so many people were like, "Oh, this is terrible. You can train this way or that way." Their formula works. You know, they
Does.
signed the right athletes for them. Creed brothers are another example. Like they've been blended well in the main roster. Can't wait to see them go with Gable. I feel like that's when they'll really take off as
Oh
heels.
yeah, yeah.
But like, yeah, man, NXT has been great with bringing athletes in, training them in the right way. And I think I'll even say too, I mean, not a lot of injuries. So people are practicing safe work. You know, they're not
Yeah.
out there getting hurt every week or banging each other up.
No,
It's been huge.
that's what's changed the most from NXT 2.0 to now Sean's NXT is
Yeah.
2.0 people are getting injured every week. And I was like,
Every
yo,
week.
they're too green. What are we
Yep.
doing? And now Sean's gone back to kind of the original Trips mentality where let's bring in some veterans. Let's bring in people from the main roster. Let's make sure that we have enough people that know how to work and
Yep.
work safely to kind of show people here how to do so. And
Exactly.
then we can take the training wheels off it and let them go.
Yes. One thing I want to mention I forgot earlier. There was a moment in Becky Lynch versus Tiffany Stratton, right? When they were fighting, I think for the NXT women's title.
And what a match
And
that was.
amazing, right? And I feel like that, like you said, is an example of instilling confidence in Tiffany Stratton. And I feel like it's a great eye test before she went up to the main roster.
Mhm.
But there was a moment in their match where, you know, you can see young wrestlers sometimes they figure out where their next placement is or where they're going to move or where they're going to go. There was a moment where like Becky tapped her on the arm when they were down, and she was like, "Stay down for a second. Like let the crowd anticipate what happens next. Let them build up. Let them build the excitement." That kind of stuff is what builds next stars, and that's what gets people ready like for that next level. And she's, you know, obviously there. She's been great in programs with Naomi, even small stuff with Bailey as well too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really feel like they've hit the ground running with the staff they have in their style. I feel like it's mixing very, very well.
It's so good. It's nice to see NXT back, like
Yes.
to that level. But we talked about WCW, WWE. Not everyone can say they were a TNA kid.
Right.
I cannot. So, but I've gone back. I've watched the matches I needed to watch, I think.
Mhm.
I've obviously seen the final deletions and such.
Yes.
I was around for that time of TNA.
Yeah.
But I've gone back. I watched the Samoa Joe, you know, AJ Styles, Christopher Daniels, triple threat, best triple threat ever. You know,
Ever.
I've watched Perk Angle in his prime.
Yo.
I've seen those classics.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on TNA and WWE having a working relationship, even though it's one person? But
Yeah.
the teasing of everyone. And if Joe Hendry shows up, I swear I'm losing my shit.
Yo,
If he
I
shows up
want
at Battleground,
I need Joe Hendry to show up. I want Chris Bay to show up. I don't know where Josh Alexander. I would love that as well too. He's been someone that I followed. I wasn't a TNA kid myself, but like you said, I had the pleasure of being able to go back. I will say the thing that attracted me to TNA was Destination X. Those matches were insane back in the day. Like some of the craziest counters, some of the craziest moves I've seen. Shout out Chris Sabin. Man, used to love watching him in the ring. Like, dude was incredible.
I
But
am
yeah,
a
TNA.
noted Chris Saban hater, by the way. But I'll let you go on
Not
that.
bad. I
Yeah.
feel
No,
bad.
it's fine.
He's one of the guys I like. I mean, obviously,
I'm
you
in the
mentioned Joe.
minority. Everyone
Wow.
loves Chris Saban. Yeah, I never got it.
You don't like him. You don't like Dolph, right? Dolph's another one you're not a
Yeah,
big guy.
I'm not a big Dolph Ziggler guy. I can't stand Roppongi Vice. And I root for everyone
Oh,
Puerto
really?
Rican. So I'm sorry, Rocky Romero. I
Yeah,
hated
that's
Roppongi Vice.
crazy. Yeah.
There's like a handful of like talents where I just never got behind. They really just got me to say Juice Robinson's okay.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. He's
I
all right.
couldn't stand Juice Robinson. I couldn't stand when
I'm
he
not
was
a big
CJ
Juice fan.
Parker.
Yeah.
But now where he's like rock hard Juice Robinson and he's with
Yeah.
the ass boys and everything. Like I
Bro, he
love
peeks me in the entrance. He's like,
I just yeah, the entrance is so good. And
it is.
he's like the honeycombs guy or whatever.
Yeah.
Like
Yo, he literally is like honeycomb guy
yeah,
with the
like
hair and everything.
so they've gotten me to say he's decent. But yeah,
Okay.
yeah, there's
So
certain
you'll
people
keep
that
an
don't do
open
it for me.
mind. So you'll keep an open
Yes.
mind, but certain
I
people,
do
I
not
feel you.
like the Kingdom. I've never really understood it when they were in ROH.
I'm not big on the Kingdom.
No, so
Yeah.
there's certain acts and Motor City
Yeah.
Machine Guns. I probably get the most flack for not being a
Yeah.
Motor City Machine Guns guy because people love Chris.
I don't love them, right? But I was at, like I like some of their matches. I felt like they
Yeah,
were really good together, and they put together some good matches, as well. But TNA, look, I'm excited about their partnership. I think Jordan Grace had a great showing at the Royal Rumble,
yep.
and I thought it was great they did the squash match last night too, so make her seem like a threat going up against Roxanne. But overall, I think the partnership has limitless potential, bro. Like even if they do just do a one or two people at a time, keep it hot. If you do everything at once, I feel like it will remind people of like Invasion, that
Yeah,
angle, right? And everything. And you don't want to like rush things. I feel like if they take their time, they can play with the right people, get them in, maybe bring some people over to TNA too, to literally make an impact. But I think it's going to be really, really good. I think Battleground, I think there's going to be a lot of surprises in Battleground. But Ethan Page was huge, huge signing. I've never been like a huge fan of the guy, but I mean, you saw Twitter the reaction right away. Like I thought that was fantastic, and he's a legitimate pro wrestler.
yeah.
Like
I was an all ego guy, and like
really,
when they told me to check out TNA, I was like, oh, this is their next star, and
yeah,
wrongfully, I thought Josh Alexander was the Genetti. And
I did
then,
too.
and then Ethan Page left, did nothing in AEW pretty much. And
Yeah,
Josh Alexander became walking weapon and is incredible. And I was like, well, I guess I was wrong. Yeah, like I can
yeah,
openly say I was wrong on this one. So now Ethan Page has the chip on his shoulder. And I think
yeah.
not going right to the main roster, going to NXT, it's giving me those same vibes of when Bobby Roode signed when
Yep.
Samoa Joe came over. Knock was a little different, but even
Yeah.
like Finn Balor came over, Kenta at the time, I forgot his NXT name, is giving me like one of those
Yeah.
signings. Karrion Cross coming over, where it's
Yeah.
like it's
That's
a
a good one
good
too.
fresh start, and they can
Yeah.
really
Even
just
Drew.
build.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. I think it'll give him a chance to bite into something fresh, right?
Yeah,
Like he's not forced, especially because he's been off TV for a little bit. And I actually like that he's challenging right away for the title. I like that. I
I
like that
usually
there's
hate
not
it,
like
but
some
this makes sense.
exactly. I said the same. Usually I hate that too because it's like, this guy's gonna lose, or where does
Yeah,
this go from here? But I'm really intrigued, especially with the partnership. I do think if they're able to take those women's divisions and gel them, that could be crazy. But I also do think the same thing with some of the people in like the tag team division as well too. I just wish we got a little bit more insight of like what that partnership really is and like what's to come. But I'm definitely excited,
I
bro.
wouldn't mind if Worlds Collide came back and it was TNA,
Yes.
but then again, that's like a full brand like build up together. But
Yeah.
the stuff that can be teased, obviously, tag team wise, you have the ABC if they came over, that's
Right.
insane, right? Like if you have a guy like Moose come over, and even if he wins, like a Moose, because he's their champion, doesn't have to be
Yeah.
a champion versus champion thing, but if it is him versus, you know, Trick, that's a good, like, he'd probably win that because Trick is young. But it's one of those
Yeah.
things where it's a good look for Trick. If the roster's so deep, Josh Alexander, like you mentioned, if it's him versus Ethan Page, the first time running back into each other, then they have a match.
Yo.
The story there is just wild. That's a really good
Crazy.
storytelling match. I don't know who
Yep.
goes against Obafemi, but he's crushing them, bro,
Yeah.
from TNA. But
Yeah,
it might be a good, way to give him a good TNA veteran, and
yep.
someone that's really cool. You can have something really fun for Joe Hendry,
Yeah.
and him coming over, and maybe he sides with some people from NXT,
Yeah.
against some of his fellow TNA people. So the knockouts division's always, always dope. So there's so many options there. Or even if you mention like, just one person here, one person there, just like a
Yeah.
nice little floater every now and then, a little 2 month like lease is really, really cool to think about. And we'll include main roster people, if you
Okay.
can pair a TNA talent versus a main roster person, where are you going? What matchup?
If I had free reign, like I'm Booker, and I can make like any match I want. Ah, man, that's gonna be really tough. Um, all right, two. So one, I'm definitely gonna have ABC be on there because I feel like they need like a bigger spotlight, another opportunity. And if I had to put them in there with another tag team, surprisingly, I'm gonna say Creeds. I think the Creed brothers have shown like if you put them in the right spaces, they can take breaths away. And I think the four of them will be able to tell some crazy stories and probably some crazy athletic matches too.
Yeah,
To put that in there. And I feel like when you get like young guys, especially like in their prime, and you give them kind of those big matches opportunities, that's to me like that's where rivalries come from. That's where
yeah,
like you build, right? And it's like that's where to me, like I always think like tag division, first thing for me is Hardy's, right? Dudley's, Edge and Christian. And it's like if you want to get back to something like that, you got to create these iconic moments. You got to create these moments in time that stand still almost. And that's what I want to see them do. And I think the four of them would be phenomenal in the ring together, especially for tag team wrestling. Um, and I
think you
think
you
ABC
you
could definitely do
teased.
something different.
Did you tease another pick with the word phenomenal there? Huh? Huh? Huh?
look, look,
Foreshadowing.
the other would have to be AJ. Like AJ has to go back. And like you said, I feel like who would you not want to put AJ Styles in the ring with? I mean, the man has had almost 5-star matches with God, what's the guy who had the face?
There's a guy with a
James.
face.
Remember James? I can't remember his name now. He was like in WWE. He had the blonde hair. It was like back.
There's a guy with a
Um,
face. I'll look it up.
he's like a weird. He had a weird face. I can't remember the T-shirt that they came out. It was just a black T-shirt. But
Oh,
like
I
AJ Styles,
remember. Yeah, yeah, yeah. He rode
yeah, the
with
guy from like the
Carmella.
Indies. Yes, and he was with Carmella. Remember he had the chain on and
James
everything.
Ellsworth.
Ellsworth. I couldn't remember the last name.
Yeah, yeah. He
Look,
saved
AJ
that man from
Styles
almost
had
breaking his neck on the Styles Clash.
yo, but look, they had all great matches, right? Like
Yeah.
I remember their match on SmackDown was super entertaining. Like everyone was into it.
He
So
could
I feel
have a
like
match
AJ
with a mop,
Styles,
and it'll be great.
literally a broom, and it's gonna be great. So I feel like you put AJ in that back in that TNA space. It doesn't matter, like you say, you put him in there with Moose, you put him in there with Josh Alexander, or you could let him just have an open challenge and see whoever responds, whoever maybe he wants to work with, and he's gonna put that guy over, and he's gonna make him look like $1,000,000. But I would love to see that because his work with Cody has been really, really good, especially in
Yeah.
ring. I feel like it's definitely been a little, not talked about as much. It's not in the forefront, but man, their match at Backlash was really, really good. And I'm really looking forward to their rematch here at Clash of the Castle because obviously we knew the Mark Henry tease was coming with the suit and everything,
Yeah.
but Styles made it his own, man. He did a great job of putting his own spin on it.
I'm glad they're continuing that. And yeah, a lot of people want to see AJ Styles go back. I would love to see him go back, but not to fight Moose. I would love to see him go back and win the X Division Championship because
Okay.
that's kind of where it just started for Styles. And
Yeah.
if this is his farewell last year tour, kind of Bryan Danielson esque, where
Yeah.
it's like, you know what? Let him hold that X Division title for a month or two. Just
Why
it's just
not?
it's just fun. And it's
Yeah,
not taking away your main title at TNA. He could bring the
definitely.
X Division title to SmackDown to television, and it
Wow.
just give it visibility. And then go back and he'll lose it probably before the Netflix deal because they're not letting the Netflix
Nah.
ain't letting that shit happen. But
Nah.
it's the end of
Yeah.
Fox. You do whatever you want. So
Yeah.
nah, man,
I
yeah,
love
it's
that idea. I love that idea. My only ask from Styles, one more Spinal Tap.
one
Just
more.
one. Let us get one more Spinal Tap in a TNA ring. That's all I asked for. And yeah, I'd be down for that. That'd be
Boy,
crazy.
you want the man to break out the six-sided ring again. One more
That'd be
time.
crazy if they did just one more time. But like you
If
mentioned
he
that
was in
triple threat
Ultimate
earlier.
X, he'd go crazy.
Oh, bro.
If he was just a surprise entrant in Ultimate X, people will lose their
People would go
mind.
crazy. People
Lose
would
their
go
mind.
crazy. Social media, definitely Twitter would explode, hands down, if he
Yeah.
was able to do that, hands down, easily. But yeah, like even us just playing fantasy bookers, right? So many places to go. I want to ask you a quick question.
Cool.
Who would you take if you could do a fantasy booking? What's the one match you would make? TNA and anyone main roster, WWE, what would you make?
Yeah, outside of AJ, I think that's like, a natural one, but I wouldn't even go with AJ. I would probably, if it's so easy to just go with people who've been there, right?
Yeah.
Like Drew Mack versus Moose for the title would be really, really fun because
Yes.
that was Drew Mack's last feud
Yeah.
before coming back to WWE, and he dropped the title to Moose, and that's a whole different Moose back then.
Yeah.
So
I saw
that's
Mrs. Tweet talking about that.
yeah, that would be really, really fun. But I would it's a little bit of TNA nostalgia, a little bit,
Okay.
since we're talking nostalgia. Honestly, just as a match that I think
Mhm.
that would just pop people and the shit would go crazy. Give me Joe Hendry. I need a month
Okay.
build. Give me Joe Hendry
Okay.
versus L.A. Knight.
Hey, night.
Yeah, that just give me a month build for
Yo,
those
give me a
two.
build.
At a
Yeah.
song by Joe Hendry, L.A. Knight
Yo,
whipping him on the mic. I need it all.
yo, that
And
would
I
be
need
nuts.
one can they coexist match. Like I
Yeah.
want to see them
Yeah,
tag
yeah, yeah,
team
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and then fight each other. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the one where it might be a little bit like off the edge and no one's talking about, but Joe Hendry and LA Knight would be
Oh
amazing.
man. The promo battles between them, the back and forth would be nuts. But I agree, man. I just week to week, you could do so much because they're both really talented
Yep.
individuals, but you could do so much, like you said, in that month build to tell that story. So it's definitely gonna be one of those things where like people are gonna be nuts when they're just standing in the ring, not even touching each other yet. Like
Yeah.
just standing on opposite sides of the ring, people would go crazy wanting that.
With the
And the
song,
entrances would be lit. Yeah, the
oh
song crazy. But the entrances for those two would be lit that night.
yeah. So
Most
that'd
definitely.
probably be my fantasy booking. Before we get out of here, then
Yes, sir.
I would say since we talked about TNA, WCW, WWE, AEW, the last thing is New Japan is they put out like a 10 bullet point thing they want to change.
Yeah.
And the ace Tanahashi now in charge as the president of New Japan. Stardom
All
is
right.
officially in the fold with New Japan starting later in the summer. So for the first time since the 90s, I believe they'll have a women's division
That's
all the
crazy.
time in New Japan. What does New Japan have to do to be the New Japan of 8 years ago, 10 years ago? Is it possible because so much of the young talent they used to get. I'd say Osprey was the last real young,
Yeah.
like foreign gaijin talent that they had. And then
Yeah,
people start getting snapped up by AEW when they're like 19, 20. Because
yeah,
we would have saw Jungle Boy over there more often. We would have seen
definitely.
um Wheeler
Maybe
Yuta,
even a Nick Wayne,
Nick Wayne. Nick
right?
Wayne would have been great over there, right? Like
He would have been
these
really good over there.
these are guys that would have went to a dojo, worked out, been in New Japan for 6 years, like Jay White, like
Yeah,
Osprey. Nick Wayne would have followed that same trajectory, got his grown man body, and then he would have came
yeah,
over as the hottest free agent at 26, 27. That's not the
yeah.
way of the world now. How does New Japan adjust, or can they, going forward?
That's a great question. I think like anything is possible, So I definitely think they can from 8 to 10 years ago. But if I were in charge, I think first you have to look at, like you said, who are your stars and how do you make them mainstream? What can you do to get that crossover appeal? Because before, like you said, they're a big appeal for people over here in the States was Omega, Osprey, Jay White, and even Okada. Once he became like a household name, over here, people are like, "Oh, I'm gonna tune in for this Okada match."
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like they got to build stars, or they got to get a star from over here that can go over there that will get people to kind of follow. An idea that I would love to see them do. I love them working with AEW. I think that's a great partnership. I would love to see if they can work with WWE. They can work with TNA, work with different companies. I think the more times you can get your top guys' faces out there, then I think that's going to just help your company. I mean, their champion is literally Mox right now, right? And
Yeah.
he's on AEW TV. And I think that just speaks to where their roster is right now. So I feel like for them, they're just kind of like in a reset mode of like, who's our stars? Who's our top people? Who can we push? And I feel like that's what they really need because I remember the podcast you and Andreas talking about Jay White getting the ball, right? Omega's leaving now, like Jay White's getting the ball. Are they going to run with him in the Bullet Club? Like, what's going to happen? I mean, we kind of saw it. It basically just fizzled out.
Yeah.
And he came to AEW now. So I think they're also probably nervous of like putting all their eggs in one basket for one star. But I do think if there's a way they can steal somebody, maybe Mox is that dude. Like
Yeah.
Mox, I know he's AEW, he was there day one, but maybe Mox will kind of be that guy that will kind of like, all right, I've built or I've helped kind of push these people in AEW. You guys are good now to kind of handle AEW. Let me go over here and see what I can do in New Japan. Other than Mox, I really don't know. I'm a Jeff Cobb fan. I think he's great in the ring. I love his
I always thought
finishing
he was
moves.
great. Yeah.
He's really, really good. But like I look at him, somebody the same thing. Like, why would they not push him? Right? Is he ready for that? And I feel like their roster just doesn't really have anybody that's at that forefront that can call fans to wake up at 2, 3 in the morning, really be interested and ready for whatever they're having. But yeah, I think anything's possible. I think it's just going to take time. And I definitely feel like AEW has hurt them more than helped them.
Oh
I didn't
yeah.
even think about it, but you were right. All those signings, all of their young talent basically gone. Omega kind of like left those guys to take care of New Japan. They all came over to
Yeah.
AEW. It's
Everybody. And then
crazy.
Gorillas of Destiny went to WWE.
Yes.
Like it's
I
just
never would have thought that. Never
no,
would have thought
it's
that.
now it's one of those things where, yeah, I agree with you. I think it's time for New Japan to kind of get a little more aggressive and start taking talent from
Yes.
other companies and get into the mix. I think one is, a guy we're seeing now against Moxley and challenging for the New Japan title, which I always thought I was like, "That's dangerous, Tony." But Takeshita
Yeah.
is a guy where if you're New Japan, you go, he's our champion for the next 10 years. Like what
Easily, right?
like
Like
what is Tony
come.
offering you? I'm matching
Yeah,
it and
that
you could
I
be in
can't give
Japan.
you. Yeah.
Yeah, like
Yes.
it's a dangerous thing because if they didn't think of him that way, now you're putting him in title matches with Moxley and he's looking like $1 million. And if I'm New Japan, I'm just like, yeah, I'm giving that guy a blank check,
Easily.
whatever he wants. Like,
Whatever he wants. Whatever he
and
wants.
and I can bring him over as the best heel. He's Japanese. He can cut Japanese promos, but he's a Japanese guy who's said to hell with Japan and went to America first. So
Right?
like he's a traitor and he had to be in
Bro, there's
America and he could come back and just be like, I hate Japan. I wish I was still
right?
in the US. You guys suck. This is why I didn't
Bro,
start at New Japan. I was too good for you. And he'd be the
nuke
biggest
heat.
heel smoking in Japan for a decade.
Bro, easily nuclear heat. Or imagine, like you said, imagine if he had other people cut his promos in Japanese, but he only spoke in English
English.
because he hated them,
And he just
right? Like that
hated.
would be crazy.
Yes, yes.
People would
He just
tune in every
refuses to speak
week.
Japanese.
Yes, just refuses, right? Like that would be crazy.
It's
Yeah, they got to offer him the bag.
he's
I mean, the
money.
dude's money in the ring, money in the. His match with Osprey was amazing.
Yeah, his
Matches with Rush have
size,
been
he
really
looks
good.
the part, and he's
Yeah,
still
look
not
at that.
like really jacked yet, but he's
Yeah,
going to
yeah.
get there.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So
I'm not gonna lie, like I didn't know where he came from, but seeing his growth in AEW the last few years, definitely, it's like who missed out on this
he's a
dude?
Kenny
Like when
Omega
we first
signing.
got to see him, ah,
So
there you go.
he would have been in the dojo in Japan,
Okay, there you
but as
go.
soon as Kenny said he's coming to AEW, he was like, "His kid's coming with me." And then he
That's
just
crazy.
skipped the whole bottom line of everything and
What a
worked
signing,
through New
man.
Japan. Yeah,
What a
but he
signing.
would have been the future of New Japan, hands down, if Kenny didn't like see him super early on. I was like,
Man,
"Hey,
that's crazy. I didn't know that. Thank you
I
for
got
the
some money
insight.
for you in the States."
Heck yeah.
So yeah, that's somebody where now they got overpaid, like get him back, and Stardom will help them a ton. But yeah, taking
Yeah.
some of the talent back is going to be key. Man, it's been one hell of a convo. Everyone,
Yes,
we still
sir.
got another guest, but that's why he's the captain. This is why I couldn't wait for him to join. I
Much
appreciate you
appreciated.
so much, so much. We'll share all of this when it comes out tomorrow as well.
Okay.
You guys don't go anywhere. Be right back with another Corner Club member. All right. Again, guest number 3, Corner Club Patreon episode. We got the man. Look, the only dude who just makes me feel like mad small. Like I got to get back in the gym looking at him. Andre Canty joining us again, Corner Podcast. Dre, what up? It is nice to have you again. Last time we got chop it up about pro wrestling, which was cool. This time we're gonna dive into more MMA, and man, it'd be weird if I didn't get your opinion on Conor McGregor and
Yeah.
the canceled press conference. What let's do this. What percentage do you give 303 happening as is right now?
Oh man, I was just thinking about this. I just saw some stuff on Instagram about that. I don't know. I'm almost like 60% sure it's not going to happen. Like the call will probably still happen, but is
Yeah,
Connor being in it? I don't know, man. And I don't know what's going on. So I'm at a 60% chance that it may not happen. That's where I'm at.
it's crazy. The only I'll be there with you. I might even be higher on that scale with you if it wasn't for the fact, and Ariel Hawani like doubled down on this yesterday, that Connor has never backed out of a fight. He's had several injuries, whatever it may be. When he signs his name on that dotted line, he always shows up. But this is a very different Conor McGregor than we're used to. This guy don't need the money. He wants to fight because he wants to fight. And honestly, one more loss might be it. So if you're
Yeah.
not 100%, you might have to back out of this fight.
That's exactly what I'm thinking. Yeah, I'm thinking like so. I don't know if I don't know if he's do like a risk assessment right now. And I don't know if because that risk assessment, he's seeing that it may not go his favor. That's what I'm saying. I mean, Chandler's. I mean, you watch it. Chandler's game, right? So maybe that's why. But yeah, it's at this point, it's gonna be more and more shenanigans going into what may or may not happen.
Yeah, I think it's why Poirier didn't want to fight him again. The shenanigans are always going to be there. It's always going to be something. There's no such thing as a clean, easy Conor McGregor fight.
Yeah,
They're
exactly.
just not at all. And I'll ask you, and we'll dive kind of into like, some nostalgic aspects of this too. But right now, in terms of where Conor is, do you think he has one more title run in him? Or what do you think he has after if he does show up for 303? What do you think is in the future of Conor McGregor?
I think he does have a title run in him. Is it going to be due to merit? No. It's gonna be due to like ability. No. It's gonna be due to like sales, right? I mean, today, MMA and UFC is like a business, right? So like
Yep.
I think as one type run, at what I don't know, I don't see featherweight at all. I mean that. Come on now, not lightweight because lightweight is dangerous, man.
Yeah.
So I see 170, but you got then you got Leon who's in there. So like I see either 155 or 170 for that. Yeah, not
Yeah.
because you know how they go.
Yeah. Now, I mean, I've been pushing for him versus Leon. I think it's a fight that could make Leon a lot of money, and Leon could become a household name if he handles business. Or Connor can be a 3 division champion, which has
Right.
never been done. Like going back and grabbing the belt you already had, like the you know storyline of beating Habib's protege. If you think for any reason you could beat Islam Makhachev, which I don't think so, it's like another Khabib, but with better hands. Um, yeah, I think maybe that revenge aspect could be a storyline, but outside of that, it's like you want to make history. You only have a few more fights. Go try to be a 3 division champion, and the only the only person standing in the way at 170 currently, even though the division is not that bad, I think Dre like went through the whole division the other day, but it's Shavkat. And
Oh yeah,
Shavkat is great. And Shavkat is amazing, but he's a guy where he doesn't have that much clout. And you could
right.
technically be like, yo, you gotta wait. And you get the next title shine. Connor would be like, I'm vacating. And then, it's Leon versus Shavkat anyway. So it's one of those where if Connor has one more run, I wouldn't mind it. To me, though, his heyday was so long ago. And outside of Islam, that could be said for a lot of people. What are your thoughts on Dana White's recent comments of the current pound for pound is John Jones and not Islam Makhachev?
Yeah. Well, I think he's I think he's keeping John happy, right? In a sense, right? I think he's just keeping him happy, right? Because the whole, I still don't know like the whole status around like the heavyweight division and what it
Yeah.
entails. But I think it's a way to keep John happy, until that fight with Stipe. So I think it's what it is. I mean, today, is John the greatest? Come on, he's probably the greatest of all time. But like right now, Islam has had more, defenses, right? I mean, he's beaten former champions. He just beat, Alex. I mean, he's number one, but again, thinking about like the business brain, right? Just to keep John happy, right? So I take a lot of stuff what Dana White said with like the hugest grain of salt. You know what I mean? Like Lori's seasoned salt. Like that's what I do, man. But like I get it. It's to keep him happy until that, to that final fight. And then afterwards, I mean, he may not feel the same after John leaves.
Yeah, I definitely I could see that. I can see where it's like very different because you're still hoping and remembering the great John Jones, like some of his best wins. What would be your number one John Jones performance then? Like if you had to put like, yo, this is it. This is what he does.
Yeah, I think Gustafson, like the first one against Gustafson. I think that was the first one because that was it seemed like it was when he was the most in trouble, right? So I think around that, I mean, it's a hall of I think it's a Hall of Fame right now. The actual fight is the first one is so yeah, him against Gustafson. I mean, heck, I mean Gustafson gave Jones and Cormier the best fights they ever had. So I definitely say like yeah, the first one with Gustafson, then he showed him out the second time, but that first one that was my favorite one as far as that.
Yeah, yeah. I think it showed his dominance. Head kick in DC was crazy. But then he popped for like a substance and it was like, oh damn.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
like it
don't,
kind of erases that from like the memory of things. It was like, oh shit.
right.
But it's one of those things where if it wasn't for that, that definitely go down as probably his best, performance in my eyes. But the man's won one fight in the past 4 years.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Then like the whole thing with Reyes, I mean, you can say, well, there's debate about that, even if you want about that, but like, yeah, it's like that, and then the heavyweight one, but there's not a lot, I
Yep.
mean, Islam proved it, yeah.
No, yeah, yeah, 100%. So if you had to go
Yeah.
right now, who are your top pound for pound guys? Top three in
Top
the
three.
UFC.
Yeah. So for me, it would be
or
that would be.
women. I mean, if you want to throw a woman in there.
I would have if Amanda was still there. So I would
Yeah,
have had
yeah.
I would have had Amanda too, to be honest with you. But it would, right now would be Islam number one. My two will probably be will probably be my two because Leon's not in it as much, you know. So I'll probably give it hell. I mean, I probably will give it to John Jones, man. I mean, I don't know. I can't see anybody else for like a champion. And then other than that, who would be that third one? Oh,
Yeah.
Alex Pereira. Yeah, Pereira. Yeah, of course. Yeah, Pereira. Yeah, Pereira. In fact, I may put Pereira over Jones, you know, just to say it out
Ooh.
loud. You know what I mean? I may do it like right now. So yeah, man. So Islam, Pereira, and Jones, man. That's the one. That's the one for me.
Yeah, I think I would agree. Leon, it's hard to not put Leon up there because of the Kamara win. But Ilya Taporia really just beat Volk. Sean O'Malley's close.
Yeah.
It's tough, but I think Islam being number one is pretty set in stone in terms of the list right now. Where does he rank in terms of your lightweight champions then? Has he done enough to pass a beat? How about that? That's really the question. Has he done enough already to pass Habib Nurmagomedov as the greatest lightweight champion? And then we can get
Uh,
to has he passed, other
yeah.
great lightweight champion. I mean, Frankie Edgar's up there. There's like some really good ones, but
Right. I mean, that performance of Poirier was like spectacular because I didn't know how he was going to win. I mean, the hands, like you said, like the hands, I was surprised. I mean, he dropped Oliveira, when they fought. So like his hands were really underrated.
yep.
So I think Khabib got it. I guess it's the thing around like the actual like it was the dominance when he was there. In fact, he only lost a round to Conor. I think he lost one round to Conor like in his whole career. I believe
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah. I think that's
yeah.
the only, or that. And I feel like he lost the round. Maybe they didn't even give him the round. It was, uh, damn, the dude who, who beat Dustin Poirier, Michael
Michael
Johnson.
Yeah, Michael
Yeah.
Johnson. Yeah, Michael
Might be the only
Johnson
other
has a
person that got around from. Maybe.
yeah. That should be a 30 for 30 just on his like career, just how like up and down it is.
Yeah.
But
He has some of the
yeah,
best wins in the UFC and then
right.
some horrendous losses.
Yeah, it's like the best of time, the worst of time, as Charles Dickens would say. I mean, that's
Yeah.
pretty much like his career. But I would say just off of that, man, if he has maybe like two like losses, I mean two like lost rounds and how he dominated, I think he'd be still number one. I think as far as like the actual people that's been beaten, Islam is pretty much like up there, like as far as like the people that he's beaten, right? I mean, he's beaten Poirier, he's beaten Gaethje, he's beaten Oliveira. I mean, those are
Volkanovski
huge.
twice.
Yeah, and head kicked him. So
Yeah.
probably the actual people he beaten it's a little bit better than it could be right now. But I think that the actual dominance. So you got to count like is it more like the dominance or is it like the roster of people he beat? So like I don't know how that's weighed in that GOAT situation. Of course, it's all subjective, but it seemed like Khabib still right now. But I think Islam maybe has two more title defense, and maybe he go up to 170. I think it all depends on who he beats from now on.
Yeah, I think we're just starting to see the beginning of Islam Makhachev and what he can do. And when you're comparing different eras, especially UFC, it kind of gets like kind of tough because now I guess if you remove John Jones from the conversation, it's so hard to look and say like who else is in that GOAT conversation. We've seen the end of Anderson Silva. It wasn't as pretty.
Yeah.
Jose Aldo is having a resurgence, but Jose went through his lumps. Uh GSP never really had that. He retired on top, two division champion. And it's like, is GSP the great? If John Jones loses, does GSP become the GOAT? Like it's weird in MMA that things are so revisionist. And GSP has a loss though. We saw that, but he avenged it and then went on a crazy run. So it's one of those things where in MMA, it's so fluctuating and everyone loses
Right.
that it's always tough. If you had to pick who is the next champion that's going to lose?
Oh, the next champion is going to lose. Oh, that's a
Yeah. What's the next belt that changes hands?
Oh man, that's a good one. I'm thinking I'm thinking 185, man. I think DDP, man. I think DDP is the next to
Ooh,
lose.
to Izzy?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, yeah. I think as far as like the capturing the belt, I think Izzy's is it only two time in 85? If he captured in the third time, I mean that's just story itself. Yeah, I think Izzy get DDP next. Yeah, I think he gets him. Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's hard not to agree with that. It's just a matter of like, yo, I'm not the biggest Leon Edwards fan. How about we start there? Like, I think Leon's good, but it's not like I'm overly sold on Leon, you know?
Gotcha.
So it's looking at that, then it's like, am I disrespecting Bilal Muhammad? Like Bilal's on one hell of a streak. I think he
Right.
only lost to Leon the first time because he got poked in the eye or something stupid.
Yeah, yeah.
And then,
Technicality, yeah.
yeah, so it's like, I can see that happening. Tom Aspinall is really good. I could see Curtis Blades beating him. If he just stinks it out, makes it a wrestling affair and takes him down and just lays on him. Like
Gotcha.
it's one of those things where those two matchups, I'm just like, damn, it's tough. Like I would love to say Bilal could do it. I'm gonna pick Leon, and I'll probably pick Tom Aspinall, but Curtis Blades isn't far behind. If I had to say one champion, and I don't know what Izzy is right now, because that
Yeah.
last matchup was just ugly, and I don't know what the hell happened to him. So he's been so up and down that I'm not sure what his focus is. He should win, but I'm not sure. And DDP looked really good against Robert Whitaker and
He
smoked him.
did. Yeah. I don't know.
So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, so it's one of those. If Izzy doesn't come in at 100%, then I don't know what the hell's happening. But Tom Aspinall I'd say the interim heavyweight champion would be the first one to go. Heavyweights rarely have a ton of title defenses anyway, and
That's
they give him
true.
a stylistic matchup that is horrendous.
Right, right. Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
I would probably go Tom Aspinall, but that again, there's so much turnover, so much ups and downs. We can look forward then. I've been looking backwards with everyone, looking forward. What matchup isn't officially announced that you hope we see before the end of the year?
Yeah, the year. It may be maybe it is a DDP. It may be that. I mean, I think it's like I don't know if it's like a matter of time of that. I don't know who else he's fighting. I think it's that, man. I mean, I'm the
I
same way
think
about Leon.
that's unofficially UFC 305. It's in Australia,
Okay,
and I
okay,
think that's unofficially the making. Not
okay. Well,
officially
then that
announced, so I mean it counts. I think
right,
it's
right. Yeah.
August in Australia is when we can anticipate that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm for that. I'm all for that story about Izzy because right now, like now that he's out. I mean, I like Leon only because like he took out Kobe. He wanted to fight for another belt again. You know what I mean? I think I like Leon just for that. I mean, there's a whole situation about how y'all watch that with all that MAGA shit, man. It is my God, man.
This
It's a
past 302 is probably even worse.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. I didn't
Yeah.
think it was anomaly. Like it was like gross like last week, and I tried to divorce my mind from it. But it was kind of a lot. But Leon took him out. You know how he took him out. I think he don't have to, fight for another belt again. But put that aside. Yeah. Yeah. I think I really want like Israel like to come back and get that belt, man. I don't know if like a mental lapse with Sean Strickland. I don't know what it was, but I think if he's 100% like in the mind, I mean, I think he can get DDP. Yeah,
Yeah, I think you get him out of here if he's focused. Like you said, you got to be 100% in the mind. Everything else will follow. I guess the last thing then we'll talk about is because you mentioned it last weekend. You have Kevin Holland winning, going, leaving the cage, dapping up Trump. There's an interview
yeah,
clip that came out. They say he gave Trump the N-word pass or something stupid. Sean Strickland, obviously, it's like super hyper masculinity now, riding with Trump. Is the UFC slowly but surely becoming a space that doesn't allow for minorities and people like us? Like, is
yes.
it something where it's almost time to stop fighting it and just be like, yo, this is y'all's, y'all can have it?
Yeah, I think, like you said, like last weekend, that I mean, I saw him in other events, of course, but it was something around not only that weekend, but after the conviction, man. Like,
Yeah, the man's a
you know,
felon.
yeah. So like, it was like, yeah, like Holland, what he said. I'm going to hope that Holland's on like a 50 Cent. Like he didn't really say that. I'm going to hope that's like a joke. I'm going to hope, man. But like start unfollowing all these people too, man. I tried to take a lot of stuff personal, but this is like, I had to follow a lot of fighters. But I think what you were saying, man, I think it's getting to like a point, um, in like MMA where it's getting to a point where they are making a stand. And I think that stand does not include us in that story, right? And I think that's what it is, right? I think like the Kobe experiment didn't work, right? So you have your Sean Strickland's, right? And
Yeah.
I guess Holland is so like who will be the avatars, right? So I think it's that, man. I think they are making a huge stand, not just politically but socially, to where I don't know if they're trying to galvanize a a part of their, or maybe the majority part, a part of their fan base that are just that rabid for that right wing stuff
Mhm.
and all the politics. Because this, it's the only sport promotion that would have Trump there.
Yeah.
So I think this, man, especially with the election coming up, I think like yeah, they're making a stand, and I guess we all have to make a decision, right? Do we want to partake in this anymore? Because if that's going to happen, I mean, real, I don't know if I want to. I don't know, man. I don't want to pay for those pay-per-views or engage as much as anymore, man. Fight Pass too, man. So I'm gonna have to make a decision, man. You know what I mean? Like I can catch highlights, but other than that, man, I don't know if I can rock with that anymore, man. And they don't have to be like, okay, you have to bring Biden there. I'm not about that. It's just that uh, you making that much stand for that man, knowing what he done and what he'll do.
Yeah.
That just means saying the quiet part out loud, not only about the UFC, but us as well.
No, I agree, man. It's one of those things where, like you said, it's get uncomfortable,
Right.
and they're trying to force people's hands. Like, yo, if you
Right.
watch this, then you down for this, or if you're
Right.
not down for this, don't watch this. And it's like
Right.
very, very weird. I mean, I guess we ride it out through November, and then we see what the hell happens. But it's one of those things where it's like, yo, yeah, like if he doesn't win in November, the side show's kind of over. Like you don't have to keep parading this guy around. But
Right.
Dana White, makes it very clear, like, yo, this is what I like. This is what's going on my network, like on my broadcast. So it definitely gets a little weird and a little uncomfortable. But man, it was great to wind our way through MMA and everything. Can't wait. Hopefully you join us again next month. I'm going to keep tinkering with this, so every month is different, which is going to be fun. Just in case we have repeat guests all the time, so each time will be nice and different and fun to have, man. But thank you for clearing your schedule to make this work and waiting the extra week to make this happen. I really, really appreciate it. As promised, another guest on the show. You guys had to wait a little while for this one. And so did he. Shout out to David Floyd. Finally, after me having computer issues, everything, him switching the schedule around, he's at home. He's chilling. He is joining us on the corner podcast. Dave, thank you, man. Like, really, really, I really appreciate it on being flexible because computers suck. So it's
Understand that, man.
it
Yeah.
is unpredictable. Shout out to everyone who listens, because if you're wondering why we don't have an intro and outro the past 2 weeks on any of the podcasts, it is because all my files are on that dead computer. So once they get to a hard drive, I can export them to have them. We'll be back to having an intro and outro and normal commercialized breaks. But until then, y'all gonna get what y'all get. The Corner Podcast in the rawest form. But it is great to continue the show. And David, we've so far talked NBA Finals because I wanted to kick off with that. So we talked NBA with someone. We've talked MMA. We've talked a little bit of pro wrestling and all that stuff. But there's more pro wrestling to be had. And what's dope is we get to tie it into music, which is a category we haven't touched on yet. One thing I had asked earlier, and I want to ask you because it is very much, in my opinion, the epitome of what we're seeing in hip hop, where there's an older guard still around, and I'm not talking about the Jays, I'm not talking about the Chris Jerichos, I'm talking about like the Kendricks, the Drakes, they're established. They have classics, according to some people. Drake has classics. There's that equivalent in pro wrestling. That's cool. But now there seems to be a void in both pro wrestling and in hip hop, where who is next? And we see these people who pop up whenever they want and they captivate. To me, that's the Ospreys, the Omegas, the Cody Rhodes in WWE. If you throw them on something, you're getting gold. The Roman Reigns, the Seth Rollins, we know what the hell they're giving. But I was thinking of this the other day and I was having this convo. Who's next that can just drop something and captivate? And who in pro wrestling that has a match that's young, where you're like, yo, I got to turn off everything and watch that match. Because we talked about New Japan. I don't think New Japan has that guy anymore.
Yeah. I think it's
AEW has young people, but maybe they have those people. And NXT obviously is NXT, but those guys are green.
Yeah.
Maybe that guy is there. Who, in your opinion, is like that next? We'll leave hip hop alone for a second because I don't know who the hell is over there. But in pro wrestling, like who's that next person that you're like, yo, I gotta stop everything and watch this match?
That's an interesting one, man. I think, with WWE and AEW is interesting because they have a lot of young talent. It's just how you book them. Like, for example, though I like AEW and, Tony Khan gave a new platform for everybody to wrestle, I kind of think he kind of dropped the ball on Danny Garcia. I really feel like Danny Garcia, he could have been that new guy coming up, like
The
granted,
dance was so fire.
right, but also he kind of had that before the dance gimmick, he kind of had that Suzuki vibe a little bit, just like he was just smaller. And I kind of feel like, granted, Edge was the TNT champion, but I kind of felt at the same time, Danny Garcia should have been the one to beat Christian because he'll benefit that from the most.
Yeah. Edge and Christian didn't need a belt.
Yeah, like Christian's run was good though. As a heel, great. But also at the same time, I kind of felt that rub should have been on a younger talent because at the end of the day, Edge was going to be Edge regardless.
Yeah, Christian was gonna be Christian. We
Yeah.
just saw that with Swerve.
Yeah.
He don't got to be a champion for any of that shit.
Yeah. And it's like, man, like somebody like a Danny Garcia or somebody like, or even like a Will Hobbs, I kind of felt like they needed that rub with the title if you beat that person. So
Is there anyone that you think has been done right then? Because we're trying to like, I'm pulling from the nostalgia to the current times. Like, who is that person? Like, to me, if you ask me, and I'm removing MJF from this.
okay.
He already has a title run. He's a made guy. I understand he's stupid young. But the same could be said of, I don't know, if you look, Rhea Ripley.
Yeah.
Stupid young, but she's established.
Right.
So I'm taking them out of this. They prove too much. But if I look at like, yo, who's that next person where I just gotta watch them? They're just jumping off the screen. NXT Obafemi got me. Like he's a guy where I don't know what his next feud is or who it is, or I mean, clearly I know he's wrestling at Battleground, but after that, like I have to tune in. He is captivating. Carmelo Hayes was that for me a little while ago. And even AEW wise, they always have someone who pops up and fills that void. Darby Allin is still really young. For a second, I would have said it's Hook, but they've kind of fucked up with Hook.
Yeah.
So it's like there's still guys who jump off the screen.
Yeah, and I kind of feel like I agree with you. Like even like being in NXT and WrestleMania, like seeing him with the North America title, that's a big presence. And it's like, man, and one thing NXT does good, better than AEW, is that I think they focus on their young people early. So it's kind of like, okay, these might not be the people now, but they got a pipeline for the future.
Yeah.
AEW, I kind of feel like though it's more exhibition, you need more stories, but also you need to be set up in a situation like, okay, these are the people right now, but in a couple years, they're gonna be the next up. And I think so far, character-wise, Jack Perry's kind of interesting. With this elite push.
Okay. Yep.
I think right now, especially that the Punk stuff, he's kind of using that to his advantage. I kind of want to see where elite goes, but I guess I got a question for you, Cal.
Yeah.
Where's your head at with Okada?
I love this version of Okada, but I've always loved heel Okada.
Yeah.
Like him and Gato And when he turned heel into like real Rainmaker asshole Okada, I understand that they had to turn him babyface when Naito made his push.
Yeah.
Osprey made his push. They were both very heelish. So Okada had to turn and was a babyface his final couple years in New Japan. But when he couldn't get over the hump on Tanahashi and he had to be an asshole and Geto had to cheat for him, and he was like, everyone knew Geto was the booker and all this shit. And like, he was the chosen guy and you got to cheat to put him over. I love that version of Okada. And I love that they've played off of that. And we talked about, because it's been a nostalgic episode, we talked about the comparisons of NWO and this storyline going on in AEW earlier. And to me, this was the Hollywood Hulk Hogan. You took someone's biggest star when they still got some juice, and a guy who was a babyface for a majority of his last run, even though we've seen Okada be a heel before, Hogan, we never really saw it. But coming into AEW, everyone assumed he was going to be a babyface. And immediately he helped the faction trying to take over and said, screw you. And I love when they pull out for the Rainmaker pose and he just flips everyone off. Love it.
He called everybody bitches. I was like, yo, but do you think like he's
so
playing
good.
more, but do you think he's playing more of a side role versus like for example, like when Hogan was it turned heel in NWO, he was like that dude in the front.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like when I see Okada on TV, it's like, granted, he's a heel, and I don't mind him being a heel, but I kind of feel like he's in this the Bucks, and then there's Okada in the background.
I think Okada being the singles act, one, stands out to me. Two, it's not like the guy fluent in English.
Right.
So they always kind of had to hide him a bit.
Yeah.
Takeshita's role is pretty like solidified. So you can't give him to Don Callis. So it was like one of those things where the Bucks do a lot of speaking for him.
Right.
But to me, if you say someone in this EVP's faction, no disrespect to Jack Perry, if you say someone's going to challenge for the AEW heavyweight title, it's going to be Okada.
Definitely.
Yeah. If you say someone's going to be a singles champion, Okada is that singles champion already. So it's one of those things where they've done with actions that he's that guy.
Yeah.
And I like how they've booked him. Thought that was unique. AEW does a really good job of booking the top of the card phenomenally well. And then fucking up the rest of the mid card.
Yeah.
And we're still kind of there.
Yeah. I think what AEW suffers from is lack of stories. Like when they get in their story bag, they're good. Like the Hangman story. Granted, Cole and MJF got hurt, but like that story was good.
Good story.
But
that's
I kind
of heavyweight championship story though.
Yeah. But I kind of think like everything else is kind of it's been a lot of start-stop pushes. Like, for example, like I remember the storyline with Danny Garcia and Bryan Danielson. I remember Jamie Hayter and Britt Baker. Like that was supposed to,
I guess that was injury based. So I'll give him a pass on that.
Yeah.
But still, your point is 100% true. It's so much, this person's hot right now, and then cool them off for no reason.
Yeah. And they got the roster too.
Yeah. I mean, they have a really big roster and one guy booking.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where it's like he needs help.
Yeah.
Like there's no reason why Ricky Starks feuded with Punk. Punk leaves the company. He has an amazing strap match against Bryan Danielson and then disappeared.
Now, do you think,
to be fair, they tagged him with Big Bill, which was even shittier, cooled him down, and then he disappeared.
Now, do you think it's because there's been rumors around the campfire that he WWE bound?
I think he's still with them. And even if they're WWE bound, how early do you punish them for that? Right? Like, we're talking, this shit happened in August. If he's WWE bound on June 6th, you punished him for 10 months? This is what CM Punk is talking about when he says, I can't mention that because I don't want my friends in that company punished. Because if that's the case, they punished that man for 10 months because CM Punk liked him.
And do you think part of it has to, because I've noticed, like, even at being a couple of manias and like even peeping some of the rumbles, you see him there.
Yeah.
Like if you was like in that situation, like if you was in Tony Khan's situation, how would you feel about that? Again, I'm not picking sides, it was just, picking the brain.
I think when we're in this day and age, much like the NBA, I talked about this earlier. It's something I miss about the NBA, but there's no true rival.
Yeah.
This isn't WWE Monday Night Wars, WCW.
Rubs and Crips, yeah.
Yeah, like where we understood the clique was very friendly still, but everybody else was like, F you, you're trying to bury my company. Taker's like, I'm not hanging out with anybody over there.
Right.
Like, this is my side, and WCW is doing the same. Like, oh, we're trying to bury you. And you can't even deal with each other to the point where WWE bought WCW, and some people were like, I'm still not coming. Sting was like, I'm not coming. I'm out. I'll sit at home.
Yeah.
I'm not messing with y'all. Like, it was real. Now everybody's friend. It's hypocritical to have Bailey in a box watching Mercedes Moné win her title, to have Rhea Ripley backstage at Double or Nothing supporting Buddy, and then get mad when Ricky Starks went to support Cody when he won the title.
Yeah.
Not on TV. They're trying to sneak just because dirt sheets and stupidness exists now. That's nobody's fault. That's like being in high school now. Like, I could never do that shit because I'm going to party. I'm going to chill. Like, if that shit ends up on Snapchat or TikTok, I can't help the times.
Yeah.
I'm just doing me. If they end up on the dirt sheets, they're just doing them, but they're just supporting a friend. And a lot of Punk's interviews gave that like insight of like, yo, it's like, I don't want my friends punished. I have a lot of friends over there. I can't only say so much. I don't want it taken out on them. And people laughed at that or took it with a grain of salt.
And I give Punk props because that's maturity on Punk. Because I think if this was Punk post like when he got fired from the first time, I think it would have been all crash and burning. But I think Punk understands now, like, you know what? I'm over here now. I got my friends over here. They got wives and stuff like that. I want them to be safe. So I'm gonna just focus on me and stuff. So, but you're right. I think, with Ricky, he got that potential, man. Like a Ricky and Swerve feud would be lit.
Oh yeah. Swerve needs, in my opinion, a really good run. He's had a great start, even though it was really short on that feud, but ended up being really, really good with Christian.
Yeah.
But it's a one-off because now they've moved him to Ospreay. And it looks like it'll be him and Ospreay all summer. But if that's the case, then he just has two feuds. Because Ospreay's winning in London.
I feel like, because I listen to you and Andreas a lot, man. Yeah. Shout out to the corner. I appreciate y'all. Swerve needs to win. I think
now or in London.
Both, because I think at the end of the day, Ospreay is going to be Ospreay. Win, lose, or draw, Ospreay is going to be Ospreay. I feel like for Swerve to be a made man, he needs to beat made guys. Like we'll put him on the map first was the Hangman feud, which was
you're the second one who said that today on this podcast.
Oh, well,
100%.
And with Swerve and Ospreay, that'll be a good match. But also, I kind of feel like if Ospreay would have lost, if Ospreay loses, I feel like he still has that momentum. But if Swerve loses, it's like back of the line. And it's sad to say because I like Swerve. I like, I'm a big fan of his. I've been listening to a lot of his post interviews, how he's staying motivated. I got a quote on my work wall saying that, if I can't find a way, I find a way anyway. And I feel like with Swerve, he needs that momentum.
Yeah.
I don't think he could be a transitional champion.
And I wouldn't consider him a transitional champion, even if he did lose in London. But my prediction of him losing is only because you have such a backlog now.
Yeah.
Of how long does he hold it? Because Ospreay probably should hold it. Yeah. MJF has a legit path and still connects crazy with the audience to come and get that title back. really due to injury, why he lost it. And Adam Cole's been earmarked for that title, if not for injury, for a year and a half. And then you have a returning Hangman, you have a returning Kenny Omega who's going to blow the doors off the house when he does. So now we're up to 6 people who could probably be champions in the next 3 years. And we haven't gotten to Okada. We haven't gotten to Jay White. We haven't got, you have legit 8 or 9 people. People are waiting to see be your heavyweight champion.
Cal, this is like my dad says all the time. These are high class problems.
No, you would think. Everyone says that. They're like, oh, this is high class problem. No, it doesn't matter if the headache's coming from a supermodel or your housewife. The headache is the headache.
But this is good because if you think about it, AEW had a lot of injuries.
They did.
So
and it's created this longevity.
Right, exactly. But if you have all these different people you could put the title on, say, for example, with the style AEW does, it's great. You know, it's one of those sports feelings, or one of those kind of indie feelings. But say if 3 of those 8 people got hurt, you still got a good roster.
100%. That's how Swerve got the belt.
Yeah.
Adam Cole gets hurt, MJF gets hurt, and it's just like, okay, now we're going down the list. Jay White, he's still kind of new. Okada, really new. And it's just like, okay, Samoa Joe had a nice run. Who's organically over?
Yeah.
And Swerve was always in that, like, oh, him and Keith Lee got to blow off their feud, but we see Swerve, Mogul Embassy can do something.
Yeah.
And then everybody gets hurt, and it's like, do something today. And then the dance pops off, and they're like, "Whoop, shoot him to the moon." But that's probably a year and a half away. If nobody gets injured, year or 2 away.
But I like kind of how Swerve is bringing like the hip hop element to it as well.
Love
like
it.
with the Mayweather, Benny the Butcher. I think AEW needs to do a better job at doing cross promotion. Like, for example, the Boston and Mavericks games on tonight. The Swerve should be there, or some people should be there to be like, okay.
WWE had the trophy this week.
Yeah.
They had all their talents talking to Larry on social media. Yeah. Cody cut a promo for UFC last week.
Yeah.
They were talking about the NBA finals. You literally stole my take from about like 30 minutes ago. Like in the pocket. So we're here to the point of, I was saying earlier, I think I was telling this to Chris, but it was obviously everyone who listens to the pod knows like Swerve's the homie. Like I talk to Swerve several times a week. I only dislike Swerve when I play him in Madden. So it's one of those things, but I'll share a story again. We were talking the other day and I was like, yo, congrats. And he's like the busiest guy in the world right now. So, yo, that's congrats. Like, what's your schedule like this week? He's telling me your schedule. And I was like, I love what you're doing for AEW. And he leveraged a lot of his resources outside of AEW to become champion. And I get it. You're chasing the top spot. He brought in Rick Ross. You know, he's chilling. He's dapping up West Side Gun every joint. He's going to Hot 97. He's getting him that song. AEW didn't commission that entrance song. That is a song Swerve did. Got a guy who writes legit industry hits. Like, yo, garments. Can you please be on my hook? Here's the money. I'm paying for the studio time. I want a dope track. I need a new entrance thing. He did all of that. And it popped off and he brought it to AEW, which is great. And it made him heavyweight champion. That was the ultimate goal. So well worth it, right? Like it is what it is. And he's still doing that. Mayweather comes while he's champion. He's investing a lot to not just be a whatever champion.
Right.
He's becoming a name. But I was very honest. I was like, they also have to invest in you.
Yeah.
Because you're bringing all of this yourself.
And he doesn't
have to. No, he doesn't. But I understand it's towards his goal.
Oh, of course. Yeah, for sure.
He succeeded at his goal.
Yeah.
But now they should be bringing stuff to you. They also have connections. They also have leverage.
Guys are on TNT.
Yeah, like, why aren't you? Like, you brought all of this. And it's a gamble to ask. I don't know how it went down, but I'm assuming to ask Rick Ross for a favor. And the favor isn't, yo, let me be a feature on your album, or you'll be a feature on my album. The favor is you're in Florida. We're recording in Florida. Can you come and be on TV on a wrestling weekly show and actually cut a promo? Allegations, false allegations. Like you gotta, like, it's a big favor to ask of someone. And he did. And it worked out great. They have to then reward you in the same way. They can ask favors for you too. Yeah. They can ask for 2 courtside tickets.
Right.
They can ask for you to bring the belt and be on halftime. They can ask, even if you're not at the game, they can ask for you to be in the studio talking to Shaq, Kenny, all like that's a great look. If Shaq holds that belt, Shaq's been on AEW. You give Charles the belt and Charles holding the belt, Shaq's like, oh, I'll wrestle you today. That's viral shit. That's easy. They can ask for that favor. They have to start doing it. And I kind of think WWE leverages all their connections for their talent.
See, and I kind of think too, granted, Vince is gone, right?
Sure.
But I feel though WWE's strength is that it's entertainment first, but wrestling second, in a sense of, let's go mainstream, let's go for the casual fans. AEW, I kind of feel like it's wrestling first, which is important. But after a while, it's kind of like, okay, what's after that? How are we going to get more fans?
And if you have someone in your face that can do it, I'm not saying you have to do it all the time, right? Like WWE is a wild example. You don't have to do it for everyone. I'm not saying you have to build The Rock again. You don't have to do all the, like, you don't have to set up a Scorpion King.
Right.
Like, you whatever the fuck Triple H was in. I forgot what movie that was. That was horrendous. The Big Show was in several movies. Like, you don't got to do that for everyone.
Right.
But when you have someone special, when you have an MJF who goes out and he's in a wrestling movie with a fucking teen heartthrob turned act, like, that's a thing where MJF promoted that really well. They didn't promote that enough to highlight he's in this very big movie with A24. Like, it's about Devon Eriks.
Right.
MJF is in this movie. They didn't do enough.
Right.
When you have a guy like Swerve, who's like, yo, he's around the biggest rappers of today. And it's not like rap is niche.
Right.
It's just pop culture. Lil Wayne is on First Take. He's on Undisputed. He's at the fucking Colorado thing. Like, Drake is everywhere. He's in Toronto. He's in all. Megan Thee Stallion. Sexy Red was on NXT and it did numbers.
Man.
Numbers.
I got my thoughts about Sexy Red. But...
Oh, we got to touch on that then. But like, it's like, yo, you bring them in. It's not like Trick Williams called her. It was like, yo, Sexy, you want to come through? I know you're a fan. Sexy was tweeting about it. WWE PRs. Yo, would you be interested in coming into NXT? Oh my God, I love NXT. Yo, boom, we put it together. Shawn Michaels got the chef hat on, and they doing it. And that shit goes crazy. So it's one of those things where they got to meet you halfway. What'd you think of the Sexy Red, though, in NXT?
All right, so...
that was a deep breath.
All right, so do I think Sexy Red has hits? Yeah, I think she found an algorithm for herself and her fans, right?
Yeah, it's undeniable.
But it was cringy because I'm like, it's her, and wrestling is like, I'm not saying it's majority white, but it's kind of like she's being herself, but also it's like, if this was
ratchet.
You're right. If this was Meg or Lotto, I'm like, all right, cool. But Sexy Red, I'm just like,
She got ice cream cone tattooed on her face.
Yeah, and they're kind of trying her out there. I'm just like,
like, I understand where it's like it's an uncomfortable portrayal that you're giving to still a majority white fan base.
Yeah.
Like it's not the best portrayal of Black culture that you could be putting out there. Right? Like I get it. It's kind of uncomfortable where you're like, it's like having your really hood ratchet cousin.
Yeah.
They are fun. Oh yeah. Like the Ratchet cousin, a blast to hang out with. Like, yo, we chilling at the cookout, we homies.
Right.
But you're not bringing them
Yeah.
to your job function,
Yeah.
a gala or
Yeah.
something like I get it. But with that being said, there's more embracing of the ratchet, I would say, in today's culture. And the thing with AEW, and that's what I think WWE kind of does a little bit better, is they realize who are we marketing towards?
Right.
So it may turn off you, it may turn off me. But TikTok and these kids, they're gonna eat this shit up.
Money talks. I get it.
And it's just about the demographic. WWE and NXT caters towards the kids. They
Right.
cater towards future fans. We feel like it's cringe, and we should. But our kids are over here saying, "Oh my God, look at her. She ate. She's throwing ass." Whatever the kids say. Yeah, like there's a bunch of snapping and shit involved. Yes, sis, blah, blah, blah. They say all that. And then the whole crowd was getting sexy, and
And
then whoop that trick. Like,
I'll give it credit. I'm giving credit where credit is due. Like, I get it. Like, does he have catchy songs? Absolutely. Does she know her fan base? Absolutely. Is she trying to ride the wave now that she's hot? Absolutely.
absolutely.
But I'm just like, oh God, like, man.
It's kind of like when they had MTV at like the first couple of WrestleManias or something. I'm sure
Yeah.
like the parents at the time were like, why the fuck are you bringing these rock star young? I think they had like Cindy Lauper or something. Like, oh my God, why is she in there? Like, and that's what the kids do now. Again, it's not my favorite thing, but I thought it was funny. I really wish she would have took a bump.
Yeah, again, she might. But again,
There's still
like
time.
I said, if this was Meg, Lotto, all right, cool. Like, I ain't tripping. But
It's
like
too
Sexy Red,
ratchet.
I'm just like,
Uncomfortably ratchet for you. No, I understand, and I can't
yeah,
even knock them. But I think it's one of those where they have their finger more on the pulse of
yeah,
pop culture than AEW does.
yeah.
And a company just as recently as a year ago, with
Yeah.
involvement by Vince McMahon, shouldn't outcool you.
And I think NXT is getting more edgy too, low key.
Edgy, a lot more black people on NXT. There's
Oh,
black
yeah.
champions, black tag teams. There's a tag team that look like Crime Time. I love those dudes. They're fighting in the Tims.
I
Yeah.
remember the takeover in Philly, and the whole crowd was like, "Whoop that trick!" And that hype bit, man, it was lit.
Yeah, like it's NXT under Triple H and then now under Sean is a lens of the future of where the company can go.
Yeah.
And the future now is they're leaning into what culture is unapologetically.
Yeah.
And they're okay with making people uncomfortable
That's how
if
the
it
attitude
means
goes.
that.
Yeah. And I think, oh my bad, I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
And I think NXT does a good job at making people who aren't wrestlers. And this is what I mean by that. Bianca Belair, Big E, I'll say Strowman too.
Yep.
They didn't have
Montez.
They didn't have that indie background.
No.
And WWE does a good job in molding. And also, I got to give credit where credit's due. Mark Henry has a good eye for talent too.
Great eye.
So it's kind of like, okay, we can mold you to be the type of wrestler we want you to be. And that's I think NXT has a better like power plant system.
Yeah.
I think
they have a performance center with no one else has. Yeah, that's
AEW. Yeah, AEW is kind of like fly behind the back of your seats type. Like I remember Jay Cargill was talking about how like no one kind of taught her how to use a chair, but Punk did. Punk taught her how. It's like you need to kind of have that balance of your veterans, but also you need the developmental as well. And I kind of think honestly, like ROH could be there like NXT.
Yeah. It should be, but ROH is such a legacy brand that I think he's trying to keep it that way. But he has to let that go. He has to change it. It has to be something different. Because the ROH we remember is a young CM Punk, a young Bryan Danielson, a young Kevin Owens, Kevin Steen, a young El Generico, a young Tyler Black, like a young Claudio. All these people weren't established. It's okay to just have young talent there because that's what it was built on. And they can shine and you can pick your stars from that and then really figure out who's next. And there's way too many old legacy acts in ROH right now. Move them up to AEW or let them go elsewhere. GCW is great. New Japan's great. It's okay. And just say, this is the young people show. And we're going to find the next Ricochets, the next, all these people. We're going to find the next generation of them. Because right now, they're just putting those people in AEW. And it puts people like, and I love Christian and, Mama Wayne, but Nick Wayne's not learning.
Not ready yet.
Yeah, but he's not learning how to be a top guy either. He's just in the wing and taking losses for Christian, which nothing wrong with that. But it's like if he was in an ROH, he can develop his own character and grow. If it's him and a bunch of young people. Top flight.
And I kind of think I remember. Yeah. Oh, my bad, Cal.
No, you're good. I'm just like, there's these young people who need those everyday reps.
And I think sometimes I think early television for some wrestlers are kind of causing that kind of. I think sometimes you don't need to be on TV right now. Like Nick Wayne, he's good in the ring, but I feel like he doesn't need that exposure right now because, as they say, once the toothpaste is out the tube, that's it. Yep. I kind of think like you're right. Like a lot of those people need to be like in the ROH and stuff because, granted, you're on TV, but you need those reps.
Yeah, and they're counting on these people getting it through osmosis. Just be around a veteran, and it'll sink in. Daniel Garcia, Sammy Guevara, just be around Jericho. You'll learn. How many people boosted off of Jericho being in his faction? Like none. So, and Jericho's great, and he's reinvented himself. But sooner or later, you got to let these people fly and give them that time. And they're kind of feel like not doing it. Yeah, it's their development, their ability to sign young talent is great so far. Their development of the young talent leaves a little bit to be desired.
Yeah, I think so too.
So I hope they change that.
Yeah, I do too, because I think WWE's strength is that you have a Trick Williams, you have a Braun Breaker. They're good, but you can see in 2-3 years they're gonna be on the headliners of WrestleManias.
Yes, women too.
Yeah,
Tiffany Stratton. It's Tiffany time. She's gonna be a headline.
Yeah.
So
and I think
go ahead.
And I think WWE does a good job of character development. Because again, you can wrestle all day, but it's like the old NXT. You can wrestle, but you're gonna get older. You can't wrestle anymore.
Yep. Not at that level, not at that rate, unless you're just gonna get injured all the time.
Yeah, or you gotta change your style, and people looking at you like you weren't used to doing that
at all. So as we start to wind down, what's something we'll go the big four companies. And I'll go down one each. What's something they can do better, in your opinion, if you had the control? Start with WWE.
I think WWE needs to do a better job at kind of giving opponents to Cody, because I think, though I like Cody Rhodes, and he finished the story, but I remember like Andrea said before, now what? And especially now with Cody, it's one thing when you're crying, it's like, man, I did it for my dad, and it was good because you finished it.
Yeah.
But also, it's kind of like you're here now, so it's kind of like, okay, we need to do something different. So I think more opponents for Cody. It's gonna be interesting to see how the bloodline ends up now too. So I think right now, I think WWE is in a good spot, but just kind of have more stories for Cody. I would have done the draft a little better, actually have different wrestlers go different places versus like, oh, you're here and you're still
Yeah.
going to be here. So
No, that's fair. And I think the bloodline's headed for like a civil war that's going to be
Yeah.
incredible.
yeah,
Incredible. Because we haven't even seen probably the best in-ring wrestler of the bunch.
oh yeah, and then Jacob Fatu comes.
Yeah, Jacob Fatu is the best in-ring wrestler of all of them.
They were
It's about to get
concerned
crazy.
about him overshadowing Solo.
To the point where you got to let Solo rock a little more.
Yeah,
Because when Fatu comes, he's an animal.
yeah,
An animal. And he's, and Roman's going to come back and be like, yo, I'm the tribal chief. And they're going to say, fuck you.
yeah.
And he has to go and get Jimmy and Jay and, oh my God. And then I hope this all leads to The Rock being the mastermind behind it. And yeah, Paul Heyman's going to it's going to be incredible. There's a chance the next saga of the Bloodline feud ends up as good as the first. And that's high praise because the Sami Zayn shit, the Roman rot, that's tough. Them turning Roman baby and the run he's about to have could be better.
Roman
Nothing could be better.
no.
It could be as good. Finally getting a babyface Roman can be as good.
And we like him for once now.
Yeah, after all this shit, it's gonna be crazy. All right, AEW, what can they do better?
I think what AEW could do better is focus more on storyline and characters versus just in-ring. In-ring is great, and your pay-per-views are always great. We have to focus on why they're wrestling, why they care. I think also tone down on the pay-per-view not the pay-per-view numbers of quality, but like the matches.
Yeah.
I think some days could be like, man, it's a long day, or especially if you're at the venues, it could be a long night. So kind of cut those down. I think also too, stop with the start and stop pushes. I think we got to be consistent. You know, if you're sticking with this guy, stick with this guy, because it's kind of hard with that momentum. Also focus on young talent too, because I'm starting to see flashbacks of WCW in a sense of we're letting people like Jericho be on my TV, but we need other people on our TV. What happened to Action Andretti? You know what I'm saying? They beat Jericho and never was heard from again.
And people were telling me that was bigger and better than the 1, 2, 3 Kid.
Yeah. So just keeping that balance of, young talent and just being more consistent instead of and stop being exhibition focused.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree. They have to deliver on moments that they build.
Right.
And to me, that's like that Andretti one is perfect example.
But the moments sometimes are more important than the matches. Like we don't remember Hulk and Andre the whole match, but we remember when Hogan slammed Andre.
Yeah, a lot of it. Listen, I said this earlier. I couldn't name you 3 classic Rock matches. Maybe. And I don't consider Rock Hogan a classic. Some people do. So maybe you give me him, Mankind in the empty arena. You give me Rock Austin 1. And then you give me Rock Hogan. That's it. But we think The Rock is the greatest shit since sliced bread because the promos, the moments, everything else is what carries The Rock.
Right.
And they don't give enough of those.
And also one more thing with AEW, focus on yourself. Don't try to be everybody else. Focus on yourself. This is what we're doing, not trying to counter program anything.
You know Tony's petty.
I know.
Tony couldn't help, even draft night, he couldn't help but mention WWE.
Yeah.
In the interview. All right. We'll go New Japan. What can they do to get back to being New Japan?
Man, I remember New Japan, that Wrestle Kingdom show was the hottest show on turf. I was up 2, 3 in the morning watching that live.
Easy. Just set an alarm.
They need to really focus on young talent and have like the Gaijin put over the young talent.
So tough. They don't have any more Gaijin.
Yeah, I mean, you have
LP, maybe,
but you need to really focus on your young guys because I think they got spoiled with Okada, and I think that they didn't think Okada had the balls to go somewhere else. It's one thing to lose Ospreay. It's one thing to lose Kenny and Jay White, But it's like, losing Okada in New Japan is like losing Cena and peak Cena.
Yeah.
And I think they need to focus on the young talent, kind of get back to the roots of things.
Yeah. It's like Randy Orton leaving.
Yeah.
Like it's ridiculous. Like who would ever think that that's the case?
Yeah.
Last one, and honestly, I can't find too much they're doing wrong, but I'll still ask. TNA.
More exposure, bigger network. I think sometimes
I don't know where to find that shit weekly.
Man, I think TNA sometimes have the best cards. It's kind of, I'm not saying there were NXT back in the day, but they had those sleeper cards, you know.
No, I agree with you. Their pay-per-views, bangers.
Yeah.
Bangers every time.
Where can we watch, you know?
Yeah. And I think, and I'm not sure if this is the case, but this partnership or loose partnership with the WWE, the WWE has enough money where I would love for them to bring TNA into the WWE network on Peacock or wherever they go next. Just, you don't have to absorb the company or do a million of these crossovers, but say TNA weekly and the premium live events or pay-per-views on Peacock on the WWE network.
Yeah.
And give them their own tab. Definitely get that fucking, even if you're leasing it, get all that back footage, all that catalog, and give them their own tab within the WWE network.
That ROH footage and TNA footage.
Oh, yeah. You already break down on ROH, and Tony's not even using it.
Now, I think I know we're going back to AEW for a second. One thing I say with Tony Khan is this: at least he's trying to keep ROH around. If this was Vince, it would have been dissolved. Video library online.
Yeah, 100%. No, he's done a good job with that. But with TNA, if it's just a partnership, you're like, yo, we'll increase visibility. Bring it to the network. We'll cut you a little check. It'll bring more fans to our network. You guys can still get your own pay-per-view revenue. But it'll heighten your platform exponentially because people know where to find it. And it's already a place they come for wrestling.
Yeah.
And it gives WWE possibly another night.
Yeah. Oh, I got a question for you, Cal. If I'm Scott D'Amore, where would I go?
I would have said NXT before NXT started working with TNT or with TNA so closely, right? Everyone I've talked to thinks he goes back home. I think him and TNA work it out. If it wasn't for that, allegedly Freddie Prinze Jr. is trying to start a thing that's like Lucha Underground, Scott D'Amore would be great there. Scott D'Amore would be really, and we just touched on this. If this is just me, I'm not saying it can happen. If I was just in charge, if I'm New Japan, if I'm Tanahashi, I pick up the phone right now.
Okay.
Because Scott D'Amore's eye for talent and young talent, the Chris Bays, the just what he's been able to do character-wise, what he's turned Moose into, like the entire TNA Impact machine and what he was able to do and revamp that. I need a guy who can find this talent and find these young stars and make them stars for me, not only in Japan, but because we're running so many damn US shows now. And Scott D'Amore is my US president of New Japan Pro Wrestling. And he's going to bring in those gaijins that we are missing. The next Will Ospreay, the next Kenny Omega, he's going to bring us those. He's going to make sure Super Juniors is something to really tune into because he's going to make that shit look like the X Division.
All right.
He's going to make sure tag teams come over. Oh, Stardom is there. He's going to help because TNA Knockout Division was always great. And we have amazing Japanese women talent coming in for the first time ever.
Before the women's revolution, the knockouts were cold.
Always, always. And to this day, Jordan Grace is over in NXT for a reason.
Yeah.
They treated her like a star and been able to book that. So they've done a great job with the women. Bring some of the Americans, some of the Canadians, some of the European women over to New Japan. Scott D'Amore, your job is to bring us the gaijin talent that we used to have. The Finn Balor's or Prince Devitt. the Gorillas of Destiny. We need you to bring all those people. And then we, Tanahashi, president, Ace, will develop the next wave of Japanese talent. And we're going to meet in the middle. And we're going to crush it. And I think that's what has to be next.
Yeah, because I think AEW is the reason why that New Japan is kind of falling off.
100%. They swagger jack their whole thing. So yeah, we'll see how that develops. Man, thank you for chopping up with me. I feel like we talked for like 3 hours. We needed
That was cool, Kel. Thank you, man. I appreciate being on the show from time to time. I appreciate you and Andreas. Shout out to producer Cole because I think the Celtics won tonight.
Baby, yeah.
Hey.
Yeah, I can't even talk shit to him right now, but I'll say congrats.